It shook me, eh? I'm just carrying on a bit. You're an animal. Whether you are watching us on YouTube or listening to us on your favourite podcast platform, welcome back to the Torq Hub PODCAST. G'day guys and welcome back. This is a very special episode of the Torq Hub podcast. G'day Fizzy.
How you going, mate?
I'm doing well, mate. I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, you've been busy. Actually,
yeah.
I've been busy too.
We've both been busy and we've had technological difficulties with a camera taking a shit and a laptop taking a shit. So we've had a little bit of a hiatus, but for those of you who are listening on an audio-only platform, you can't see, but we've actually got two special guests with us.
The first guest, Jeff. The first ones ever.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, first.
So let's hope we don't trip over.
No.
We can get some more afterwards.
Well, the first one probably needs very little introduction. A bit of a legend among notoriety of the forum days.
The good old forum days. I'm looking forward to getting into this too.
For sure. Do the letters KAL SPL mean anything to you?
I remember.
G'day, Daryl. Thanks for joining us.
No problem at all.
And you've also brought a little friend with us. Would you like to introduce him for us?
Yep, we have Troy here, who's the owner of PSYCO Ute, who's from Perth. I'm obviously from Orange in New South Wales, so just come over to catch up and do a bit of an intro on the Ute.
Yeah.
And yeah, Troy's the owner of it, and he's the one that's funding the project. So
Yeah, but Daryl's the brains and also, you know, the handiwork behind the
grunt
scenes,
work.
mate. I'm just a poor guy. I just say, it just gets phone calls or, you know, text messages or emails and say, Troy, I think we should do this, or, hey, any chance we can buy this, or all sort of stuff like that. It's like, okay, Daryl, no worries, mate. I'll leave it to your capable hands, you know.
Well, is there any other time where it goes the opposite way as well? We go, hey, Daryl, I'm really thinking, and he goes, no, I don't think that's a great idea.
Oh, yeah. It's
Yeah.
funny you say, funny you say that, mate. As in, when you got two minds on the same goal, on the same path. We have aligned pretty well, haven't we, Daryl, with some of our thoughts and stuff like that. It's more
both
like
from the same era, so
yeah, 100%. Both from the same sort of
that's
era.
the main key.
Yeah.
You know, because we're in. How old are you, Daryl? I'm 44. You're only a couple.
30-ish, yeah.
Yeah.
Was that born in 1930-ish?
Yeah, it feels like it some days.
Yeah. We'll probably
I'm only a couple of years older than Troy, but we've both been in the scene for 25 odd years.
Yeah.
Probably more.
We'll probably get to the PSYCO story in a little bit, but yeah, I wouldn't mind sort of going back to the origins, I guess. We'll probably start with you, Daryl. Yep. Give us a bit of a rundown of who you are and sort of how you came to be. How you ended up here. How did you end up in this shed?
How far back do we want to go? I pretty much from when I finished school, I started playing around with car stereos, and that was in Perth. I worked on a crow fishing boat in Ledge Point for a season, and then I had 4 months the off season where I had to do something. So I went out to Kalgoorlie for 4 months and sort of started getting to know the young blokes out there, being only 18, 19 and getting into the car scene and fitting stereos up. Every time I come back to Perth, I would go and see the guys at Audiocom and, you know, buy more stereo gear or whatever. And sort of got to know Nathan and that pretty well there. And they said to me, I obviously knew I was in Kalgoorlie, and they said, we're going to put a store out in Kalgoorlie. At that time, Audiocom was phones and car stereos.
Yeah.
So they, I went to find the phone store, which was, Audiocom at that stage was only phones. And I went to see them, said, you know, when you're putting stereos in here, and they asked me, said, do you want to get something done? I said, no. I said, I want a job fitting. So if there's anything available. And they told me where the shop was going to be, and they sort of set it up, and they'd moved it into cash converters at the time. The stereo and the phones were two separate parts, so they put the car audio into the cash converters. So I went in and saw them, and they were looking for an installer, and the owner of the business said, come back next weekend, we've got the boys from Perth coming up, you can, you know, meet them and show them what you can do and yada yada, and you know, we'll talk about doing a job from there. So at the time I had a VR Commodore with all the boot fitted out, and they had a VS Melrose, I think, race car, which was a replica, and they had all the stereo in that. And they turned up with that, and I sort of had a look through it and went, it's just, it's pretty cool, but it's nothing that I really can't do. And I sort of got to talking to the owners of the business, and he said, "Oh, you've got your car here, and you have a look." And I said, "Yeah." So I opened the boot up, and they looked in and just went, "Yeah, you've got the job." So yeah, I started working there, sort of part-time-ish, and I was actually doing relining on the mines at the time.
Yeah.
Ended up going full-time fitting and selling and fitting through there, and then that was the backstory on how I started with car stereos.
And that was sort of through the golden era as well. So funny story, I worked for Audiocom as well in Bunbury for a few years. So I sort of know all the fellas that you're talking about. And I guess I caught the tail end, whereas you were sort of through the boom of it all, weren't you?
Well, we really kicked it off in Kalgoorlie. There's nothing else to do out there. So everyone had cars that were easily, you could fit car stereos too. It's not today where they're modern stuff with all CAN bus and you just can't do anything with them. It's logistically, it's either expensive or dangerous. Yeah. So back then it was simple, Lancers or Land Cruisers or Commodores that you go nuts with. Yeah. And disposable income out there. If someone does it, someone else wants it, and then it just snowballed from there. So that was sort of where KAL SPL came from, was Kalgoorlie SPL, because we used to build the cars, take them all to Perth to the comps. Yeah. And absolute whitewash all the comps in Perth. Didn't matter what show it was. We'd drive down for the weekend, a group of us. We'd just go and have a bit of fun. It wasn't serious competition, but we had nothing else to do in Kalgoorlie. So we just cruised down to Perth and go and have fun, and met through a lot of people through that. Yeah. And then eventually just took over, started doing my own business, just fitting. And then the later part started selling stuff as well. And then 2012, I basically pulled the door down and moved to Orange to get to go and live with the missus. Basically, I had no plans to do anything over there. The only thing I could really do was go and work in a panel shop and strip cars. There was no car audio, there still isn't car audio scene in Orange to sort of try and pick up on. Yeah. There was a couple of shops, but they don't really install anything, and most of the kids over there don't have the money to waste like Kalgoorlie, so I knew that wasn't really going to be an option. And like you say, I think the cars now that people are running with, they've all got sort of different platforms about them where it's not as easily customizable anyway. So definitely not now. It's a lot more work to put a decent stereo in newer modern cars. It's not unavailable, but it's something you need to be doing every day to keep on top of, to understand the systems and how to actually do it. Yeah. So I dropped in and saw Nathan yesterday at Soundwave, and the stuff they've got on the shelf now and the stuff they were doing is just, it's nothing that I was ever doing back 10 years ago. It's crazy how much it's sort of changed just to be able to keep up with the modern vehicles. But then it's also seems down there it doesn't seem to be a limited market, but everywhere else just seems very quiet compared to what they're doing. Yeah. So you say you're in a panel shop in Orange now. Is that what you're doing full time? Yeah, I've got a job with John Zalikovic Smash Repairs. I just turned up at the start of January in 2013 and said, have you got any positions for a stripper?
And you got your glitter out and said, absolutely.
Well, they said we need someone to pull cars apart, but that's not what I asked about. But they said, we'll do a 2-week trial, and he said, what can you do? I said, I've got no trade, no qualifications for anything. I said, but I can do AutoSparky, I can do stripping cars and yada yada. So they said, chuck you on for a 2-week trial, and as far as I know, I'm still on a 2-week trial. I've never been told any different to not come back.
Longest 2 weeks ever.
But, just keep rocking up.
11 and a half years later, I'm still there, and still, now we're building unveil cars for Summernats, which is I don't know if I'd call it a dream, but it's not really what I sort of saw myself doing, but it was an inevitable step from where I started, being able to do every aspect of a car. I can paint, but I don't paint. Yeah. Don't want to paint, it's a crap job. But it's to be able to do auto electrical and having the stereo background from being able to build stuff with wood, and then doing the trimming, and then got to now we're doing panel beating and being able to do smoothing out engine bays, or using bog in specifically the ute, building stuff for that. It's just to be able to shape stuff and make it look like it's doing the custom stuff. It's just another set of skill set that I've acquired that helps me build whatever I want.
Do what you do, yeah. And you had a fair bit of success at Summernats this year with was it ton 871?
671.
671, sorry, yes.
Yeah, so that was a 4-year-ish build, I think. was a local guy that always, his dream one-tonner, wanted a white one-tonner. And we went through about 30 or 40 different pearl white colours to find one that he wanted. Eventually found one that looked really nice, and we knew it wasn't really going to work the way that he wanted. But it's the sort of thing where unless someone sees it in person, you can't translate it on paper or in words. So we did some spray outs and showed him the colour that he'd chosen and sort of put it up on some panels, and he just sort of stood there and looked at it blankly, and we're like, it's not going to work, mate. I said, it's a panel with flat panel. Sorry, a car with flat panels. Like, you don't get that pearl. It's a show car, so it's majority of the time it's going to be inside. If there's no light on it, no sunlight, you're not going to see the pearl.
No. So it's like that. It's kind of like that Fuji white that they put on all the Skylines, right? It's got a whole lot of depth and complexity, but it needs all of that panel.
It needs direct sunlight and the curves to be able to see it. So when we showed him, and he sort of looked blankly and said, what do we do if we don't go white? The interior had already been basically built, so it was obviously the reddish sort of colour, croc skin, everything, the seats had already been done. So we were limited to what colours we could use to make the interior still work. We'd seen this reddish colour on, being in the industry, you see a nice colour and you grab the VIN number and the code and you just put it in the aside for a project, something that you might want to use one day. So we had that one in mind, and we did a spray out on a guard that we had spare, and told him to come down and have a look at it, took it out in the sun or inside, and he just fell in love with it straight away. And we put it with the colour in the interior, and it's not something you'd pick without knowing it. Yeah. But when you see it finished and in front of you, it's like, that could work. So not a single person has not liked the colour. So that's worked really well in our favour. But it was just such a big change going from picturing we were going to have this white one-tonner for 4 years to, I think it was only probably a few months out that we decided on the red, and it was only, I think, a month or so, 6 weeks before Summer Nats, we actually started painting. Oh, wow. So it was strange to go from a whitish, greenish primed ute to black for blocking it, and then to red, and it was a completely different ute to seeing it finished to what we'd been building for the 3.5 years. But yeah, to get it done, and we did 300 odd hours over Christmas in 9 days between three of us just to get it to Summer Nats finished. That's wild. So it looked finished, but it still hasn't been filled with fluids or run yet. Yeah. Okay. In theory, put fuel in it, it will start and run, but we need a spanner check everything on it. So I've still got a bit of wiring stuff to do to it, but we committed to getting it to Summer Nats looking finished, and we told him that it wouldn't be driving, which ultimately didn't make any difference because it was going to be on stands and all weekend in there. If it got pushed in, pushed out, it wasn't going to make any difference. Didn't need to be driving. He wasn't going for Grand Champion or anything. So we made his deadline, but the downside of that is we got Christmas Day off, and that was it. So
I think I saw an interview with him and Broads on the street. On the Summer Nats or the Street Machine channel, one of the two, and he said he still hadn't even sat in it at that point. So
no one had sat in it. We got it to Summer Nats. We put the seats in it a couple of days before, and we pushed it outside I think it was on New Year's Day maybe, and got a couple of photos, and it was overcast, so we couldn't even see it in the sun.
Oh, no.
We hadn't even seen it in the sun up until I think mid-January when the second show was. No one had seen it in the sun. We'd seen the colour, or we'd seen parts out in the
under
sun,
lights,
but not a complete ute out in the sun. So the photos and videos we got, it was overcast. Just did nothing for it. But yeah, he hadn't. When we pushed it in the trailer, you can't get out of the car once it's in the trailer. So we dragged it in the trailer on the winch and pushed it back out again. So I had no reason for anyone to actually sit in the seat. It was funny. He obviously still hasn't driven it yet. We've still got to finish it, but for now, he's just happy to be taking it to shows and putting it in the trailer and pushing it in and out of the trailer and doing what we can. So
top 20 at Summer Nats is certainly nothing to sneeze at.
No, we've had top 20 with a 510 Datsun coupe 5 or 6 years ago that we built as well, which was never built it was built to that standard, but it was never built with the intention of being on display as that standard. It was just being built the way the owner wanted. The owner was in a wheelchair, so we had to do a lot of adaptations to make the hand controls look something that was, of an unveil sort of standard. Even the Tonner now was never set out to be built an unveil elite sort of standard. It was always going to be a show car, but it was never going to be we weren't aiming for top 20. It wasn't going to be not even a top 60. It was just build the ute that he wanted, that he always wanted.
Yeah.
The more we sort of got through it, the opportunity for me and Ben, who built the majority of it, to show our skills and not really have any limitations on what we wanted to do. We wanted to build it to be, of an elite level. But the downside of that is we probably did a lot of the work in our own time, not really.
Yeah.
It's not the sort of job that you go to build to make a lot of money out of retirement.
No.
That's custom car stuff in
Yeah.
general, isn't it? There's
Yeah.
so many hours that just don't go accounted for.
Yeah.
And it's the guys that are doing it like you, like it's a passion.
Yeah,
and
that's what this was for me and Ben. It was a passion. It was something that we had the opportunity with a blank slate, because the cab and chassis literally got dragged out of the wreckers. So his original one that he had, it was that they'd done that much welding on it. The chassis was twisted and bent, and we could not get anything to fit. It took 6 of us to lift the bare cab. It took 6 of us to lift the cab. They'd put that much extra steel on it to try and make it flat panels and everything. We couldn't even move it.
Unreal.
The 2 of us can lift the cab now.
Yeah.
And the chassis had all this extra steel and crap in it. It was just, so the more we tried to do, the worse it got. And we went to the wreckers to measure up a standard chassis to try and get the lines right. Ben walked into the wreckers and found this chassis and cab, and he sent me photos. And I said, "That's better than the one you got." He goes, "I know." He goes, "I think I'm going to tell Gary we're just going to start from scratch." I was like, "Well, you can tell him I ain't."
But how random is it even to find like cab and chassis of a car that old in the wrecking yard?
Yeah.
The cab was
yeah.
perfect. It had a couple of dents. The normal spots for rust around the windscreen, underneath the seals and that, there was nothing. It was
That's
incredible.
crazy. That's what I was going to say.
We
them
got it
H
blasted,
stuff.
and we could not have got a better.
Wow.
It had a couple of dents. Like, it was obviously a farm ute, because the chassis rails were just solid caked with red dirt. We stood it up with the forklift and shook it out, and I filled 2 normal buckets just with red dirt out of the chassis. So I don't think I'd ever seen any salt water or anything. So that
It was
helped
like
a lot.
it was like a tomb for the rest of the car. All the red dirt just protected it from the
We
elements.
kept it in the bucket. We told him we were going to put it back in, but he didn't say. But yeah, that's the tonner. So yeah.
Awesome. Troy, tell us a little bit about yourself, mate. Kurt and I have only just met you today. We don't know a hell of a lot about you, mate. So give us a bit of a rundown of who you are and sort of how you come into the car thing.
Realistically, it probably all comes down to the country town that I grew up in. Good
Yeah.
old Vegas, Bunbury. Anybody that's been to back in the early, late 90s, early 2000s, that cars were a huge part of Bunbury and a huge part of people down here. Back in the day, the bog lapping around the main streets, nice cars, lowered exhaust, rims, and then you had the back beach scene, mate, cruising around or catching up with people, That's how I met a lot of friends over the years.
Going back to the back beach thing, there used to be double lanes down the back beach, which
Yeah.
used to be prime for drag racing.
Correct.
But then they redeveloped it, and it's all gone now. It's no good.
100%. And then there was that one time when they actually had legal drags.
They did,
They
yeah.
had,
Yep.
I don't know. The
The blue light drags.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was back in the day. But yeah, that's how I got wrapped up in cars. Plus also that Street Commodore magazine, that was that mag that I just used to froth over. When every
Yeah.
month used to come out, and you just look at those cars and think, one day I want to buy one of them or build one of them, or those sort of stuff like that. It was Street Commodore and the Auto Trader. The other two used to go down every month.
Yeah.
Used to buy. And
Yeah, I
that's,
think we're all like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure we've mentioned that on the potty a few
Yeah.
times.
You didn't buy the
And
Auto Trader to look at the car, to buy a car. That was just to look at
Yeah,
what was
yeah.
available and dream about.
And then there was this. I still remember there was this car yard up in Perth called AUTOSALON.
Yep.
Mate, the guys that used to run that, the cars that they used to get, the HSVs, didn't matter, HSVs, the Commodores or the Fords, mate, it was next level. And I still remember I used to look at that website day in, day out, all the new stuff, they used to arrive, So yeah, that's how cars have always been, just a part of growing up and part of who I am, and still to this day, mate, they're just a money pit and just a time wasting thing, that we.
No, they're an investment.
Yes, yeah, that's what our
Not
wives
all
say.
of them.
That's what we tell our wives anyway,
Absolutely.
So yeah,
You've
If
had
you
a
buy
few.
the right ones, they're investments.
I was going to say, you've had a few over your time. Do you want to give us a bit of rundown on the collection up to this point, sort of the cars that you've had come and go?
Oh, we've only got today, haven't we?
Yeah.
Oh look, realistically, I've had multiple cars over the years. I'll be honest with you, is that I've only ever owned, like pretty much Holden were my thing. To this day, I've only ever owned one Ford. The rest have been Commodores, and I've had a a heap of Toyotas, you know, but they, you know, work cars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I always thought having a car collection was the ultimate pinnacle, right? But saying that is that because I love the early model Commodores, especially the VR VSs, they're my jam. Every time you used to, you know, start them up, there'd be something wrong with that, with leaks, you know, flat tyres, batteries and all that sort of stuff like that. And then when you throw kids into the equation and work, is that you don't get the time to spend with them. And as they're older cars, is that you need to be able to drive them, keep them, you know, lubricated, etc. But then in the flip side as well is that parts are so hard to find for these cars to fix. And then you've also got that thing in the back of their mind, if somebody hits them or something like that, how do I fix them? How do I replace that? Because you get attached to cars. It's random. If you're not a car person, you wouldn't understand. But most people probably, you know, out there in the car scene, they're like, man, you actually get attached to them, you know. And there's a few cars in my current collection that I will never sell. It's funny. Daryl and I, our relationship started over it was pretty much through Facebook. Over one make and model of a car, which is a VS GTSR, the yellow one with the big wing.
Yeah.
So ever since Motivation, there was I saw it at this particular car, the VS GTSR Motivation back in the day, and I fell in love with it there and then. I always said to myself is that my goal was to own a VS GTSR. Unfortunately, is that it took me 40 years probably not, because it was built in 1996, but it's taken me many, many years to purchase one of these cars. And I was so lucky is that my wife actually bought me a VS GTSR when I turned 40 4 years ago. So that was like a bit of a present.
Yeah,
right?
good.
Yeah.
Does she have a sister?
So it was always even in our wedding, like my wedding vows and my wedding speech, was all about this make and model of my car. My wife got sick and tired of listening to it, mate. So, you know, she ended up, you know, doing what she had to do to find this car. And then the reason how Daryl got put into the conversation is that Daryl actually helped my wife find that car. Daryl and I have been talking about this make and model car for many, many years, because Daryl has currently got a replica that he's been building and never finished. So yeah, that's how Daryl and I, our friendship over
Just a common
started.
passion.
Passion for this VS GTSR. And then getting back to my collection, is at one stage I had 14 HSVs. Currently I've got less than that. Yeah, less than that. I sold quite a few in the boom. And the reason why I moved them on is because, number one, space is one thing. Number two is that there was cars that I was not attached to. I bought them as right place, right time. So now pretty much I've got a couple of GTSRs. Okay, I've got a Maloo Ute that I bought brand new, a 2011 model that I bought brand new that I'll never sell. Pretty much that's a car that I'm
That's one you're attached to.
Attached to, yeah. And then I've got the Ute, PSYCO Ute, and and I've got a
VS Maloo.
and I've got a Club Sport R8, a VX Club Sport R8. That's pretty much it. And I'll be honest with you, is that I'm actually happy with that amount of cars.
Yeah.
I don't want any more. I'm actually content. Those cars actually mean a lot to me, and they're actually manageable having that many.
Oh, that's good.
Whereas having any more, it's great, it's awesome, but it was just a lot of work. And when you mentioned when it comes to work commitments, family commitments, and then the day-to-day of maintaining them and stuff like that, it's insane. And the cost of them, to have that many, it's just ridiculous.
Well, there's a reason why a lot of these car collectors have full-time sort of mechanical teams that maintain their collection, or they go to museums where they're maintained. And to try and have a private collection would be a hell of a lot of work, particularly if you don't work in the automotive space. I'm assuming you don't work in the automotive space.
No, I don't. No, I don't. But it's funny you say, I've got a mate, he works FIFO. He does the lifestyle, 8 and 6, and he's a bit older than me, and he was that guy that used to come and help me. He'd come and start them up. He'd get them ready for if we go into cars and coffee. And here you go, mate. Can you drive this one down for me? And it gave him something to do. And also, he helped me with purchasing some of these vehicles, doing the negotiations. I said, he'd bring me up, Troy. How much you want to pay? No worries, mate. He'd do the negotiations. He'd organise the transport of the cars back to Western Australia. But it was so funny. Most of the cars come from the East Coast. I've pretty rarely bought any cars here locally. And they get sold, you bring them over and they get sold back to the East Coast. It's random, but the amount of people I've met buying and selling cars, you meet some great people. And because you've got the same passion, the same interests, it's great. And there's none of these, look at that, look at that car. What have you got that for? What's this? What's that? And it's like, man, they'd actually help you find cars, or they'd actually help you say, hey, mate, I've got a mate actually chasing that car, hook you up, this sort of stuff. And that's what I love about the car scene,
I think that's something that when you do deal in a particular niche,
Yeah.
then you've automatically, because like you say, you predominantly around the VR, VS sort of era, you get the people that like that, and all of a sudden, it's the same thing with you and Daryl, all of a sudden you got that thing in common straight away. So you can cut through the bullshit.
Yeah, 100%.
You can cut through all of that. You don't have to do the dance. It's just like, right, we know what we're doing.
Yeah, and you can notice the real ones, like this guy's not going to fuck it up or whatever, or do
Yeah.
something stupid that us as a whole wouldn't really think's a good idea. So be like, you can feed them cars or whatever, or parts and stuff like that. Because, a lot of people have a lot of genuine good parts that you're not just going to give to someone to smack on their shitbox car or whatever. You kind of, we're at that point now where you want to see them go on the right type of cars.
Yeah. And also, when it comes to cars, it's a thrill of the chase, isn't it? As say you hear about something, or you've wanted something for all these years, and then it's a hunt to try and find one. It's like the VS GTSR I've got, right? I bought it off the original owner. Build number 005. This thing is absolutely a plum, mate. The couple that I bought it off of, bought it brand new. They went over to HSV and did the tour and all that sort of stuff like that, mate. I got, the jacket, I got the wallet, everything that went with that car.
Oh, excellent.
And then I actually never met the people. I've spoken to them about the car. I've never met them, but their life was pretty much...
They're in Albany as well.
Yeah, they were around.
Oh, really?
Their life was built around this
in
one
Albany
car.
its whole life.
So that's one that you did buy from WA.
Yeah, I actually won. Yeah,
well, his wife did. He did.
Yeah, so that was one.
Yeah,
but
when she contacted me to try and find a suitable car, and I knew that the 5 was for sale. I don't think it was publicly for sale, but I think somehow I knew that they were ready to shift it on to go and travel or whatever. It wasn't and the price was very fair at the time. It was probably the upper end of what the market was then. It was right before the prices really went nuts.
Yeah.
So the timing was really, really good. They might be kicking themselves a little bit that they sold it then, but it was, good money for what they paid for it. They've had their, what would have been 15 odd years, more than that.
yeah, well, 90,
nearly.
Yeah, well, I got it.
Yeah, it'd be at least 15 years that they would have had it.
Yeah.
So, and they drove it. It's got 50,000 k's, I think, on it. Something
Yeah,
like
40.
45.
Yeah, 45. Yeah, something
so,
like that.
they've driven it. They've got their value out of it, I guess.
Yeah.
And they loved it, and they took it to some shows, and they probably got on a bit and decided that it was time to move it on to someone else and do what they wanted to do.
I think they were retiring, man. That's why they were
Yeah.
doing it,
Yeah.
But getting back to one of my original statements is that the car that I currently own was the one I saw at Motivation.
Oh,
And that,
really?
That was the
that
car.
was one that was always on display.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the pavilion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the one that I fell in
Yeah,
love
it was
with.
always in the Elite Pavilion.
Yeah, I
that's
remember it.
why
So
when
how-
I knew that car, and I knew I'd already seen it in person, and I knew that it hadn't, it had been kept original.
Yeah.
And it was, so I had no problem suggesting to his wife that that's the car that I personally would go and buy.
Yeah.
It even smells new. It's weird. Like, it's 1996 model, and you open the doors up and it smells new.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've owned a lot of cars in my time, but I've never had a car that's that age with that lesser kilometres and still smell new. Like, you think over time that new smell would disappear, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But you can literally open them doors and smell new. Like, Daryl was at my place yesterday. First time he's seen it in many, many years. Open up the door, and even he's come in, he says, this thing still smells new.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because every time we get in that ute over there, I've owned it for 11 years or more now, for 12 years. But every time we open the door and get in it, Kurt will say the same thing. This car still smells the same.
It's so funny
How many
that,
goes on
like,
that?
your senses, because that was I
175.
bought that car when I was 18, so I thought I was pretty cool. Supercharged 5-litre ute, 18. So, and I remember when I first got in it, like, I've paid the guy the money and I've got in it and because he didn't let me drive it before I paid for it, which understandable. I was just turned 18. And that smell, that just never leaves. That memory and the smell, and I get in and it just comes back. Like, it's just so cool.
Was that in Kalgoorlie you bought that?
No, from Bunbury. It was
Yeah,
here.
right.
Yeah.
But he was originally in Meriden, so he bought Brad, who owned the Ute originally.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't the original owner, but bought it before us and did the blower and everything.
Yeah.
He bought it from Perth, but he was working in Meriden on the railways. But
Right.
he was sort of travelling between Meriden and Kalgoorlie a lot.
Yeah.
And that's because he was out that way. That's how he sort of formed a relationship with Mark's workshop. You know, put the blower kit on, etc., etc. But then he moved down south, which was when Kurt purchased it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of cage for a ute that smells new, so that's impressive.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it smells new, but it just smells the
doesn't
same.
smell-
It just
yeah.
holds that
Yeah.
smell. It's probably from the Devonish seats. There's probably
like-
something in,
Yeah,
in
I'm
them.
not sure.
Psycho does it. Psycho smells like fiberglass, and that's only got 4,000 k's on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's funny getting back to buying and selling cars, right? These auction sites, as in buying them, through Grays Online or buying them through, Burns and Co and all this stuff. I must admit is that you look at cars from the East Coast and they look all good online. I've bought a couple and I've got them back here to Perth. I'm like, what have I bought?
Yeah.
Like sight unseen. And I bought one car that had logbooks and everything, and I got in contact with the HSV and made sure it was all legit and everything. But the logbooks and the car
Didn't match.
they might have had similar kilometres, but they were two different cars.
Oh.
And through COVID it was a big thing, man. People were putting whatever car online and trying to sell it for drug money, as they say.
Yeah.
And they were getting it, but you were buying shit you didn't even know what it was, and that was the risk you took. And I still remember I bought this VR Senator, right, 215, leather seats. It was beautiful. It looked good on the photos on the auction site. When it got here, it looked good from afar, but then you look closer and like, man, this thing's had a few touch-ups over the years, Like, and even my mate, one of my good mates, he's a car broker, and he comes around, he goes, "Jesus, Troy," he said, "mate, I think that one's had a couple of accidents over the years." I'm like, "What are you on about, man?" He goes, check out that panel, and stuff like that, It was a buyer's beware, but when I sold it, when I moved it on, mate, I was upfront and honest with the people and said, "Look, guys, this is how I bought it. All I did, I fixed up all the leaks and all that sort of stuff like that, and then moved it on, because I always wanted to get my hands on a VS Senator, 215, 6-speed." But mate, rare as...
Cherry black.
No, I didn't. I actually didn't. It must be
Go on, tell him, Kurt.
I tried to buy one. Well, I had the opportunity to buy an exact car like that in Perth. It was a cherry black VS Senator 215. It had twin throttles on it, Harrop brakes, like everything. It was 25 grand back in sort of the late 2000s. I passed on it, but I regret it every day.
Mate, Like I always try to get my hands. When I did my apprenticeship, one of the owner's sons had this 215 VS Senator 215 6-speed leather sunroof, mate. I still remember him. He used to bring it around to the workshop just very frequently, mate. I remember the first day I saw it, I fell in love with it. I always wanted to get my hands on one, mate. I've tried for years to find not the exact car, but the same make and model, same 6-speed sunroof. And that was another car that I was trying to get my hands on to put in the collection. Mate, I've failed every single time. As in, I've gone to look at cars and you just walk away. They're just buckets,
We never realised how rare those sorts of things were because they were kind of semi-popular back in that era. Like, they were popping up all the time. Like, I remember a mutual friend of ours, Dave, we went and looked at a VS Series 3 Grange one day, black, had the licence plates on it, still remember, XXX355, had the 215 in it, and it had the Devonish seats.
Yeah.
I've never seen a combo like it before in my life. He didn't buy it, and I'll never forgive him for that, but I've never seen another one like that
He
ever.
never would have kept it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But, like, you just pass on a car like that, and then you'll never see it again, ever.
Funny thing is, back in that era of the late 90s when I first went to Kalgoorlie, and I think it was probably in 98, 99, and the first day I turned up, first week or whatever, I was driving around Kalgoorlie. I'd never been out there before, so I was just driving around, had my licence, only 18, 19, whatever, driving around, and there's just HSVs everywhere, and I stopped at the servo, and I got a drink, and I walked back out, and two GDSRs drove past following each other, and I was like, and they'd only been out for 2 years, if that. And I was like, where the hell am I? There's 2 GTR. Like, I knew what the car was.
Mining
and I
money.
knew they were rare. And there's just 2 of them driving down the main street in Kalgoorlie. I'm like, what the hell?
Because wasn't there a yarn saying that when it comes to HSVs, Kalgoorlie was the highest selling
Kalgoorlie's got
HSV
more
dealer
than
in
anywhere.
Australia?
Yeah, I think between them and Shacks
Yeah.
in
There's
Fremantle.
More Harleys, more HSVs.
Yeah,
in
I think
Kalgoorlie than
Golden
anywhere.
City Motors back
Yep.
in the day just killed it.
Well, I was in there all the time fitting stereos and roof screens and stuff for them, so I knew them pretty well. And every limited production model, you guarantee one would be in Kalgoorlie for sale. The Senator 300, there were only 30
Yep.
of those.
Yep.
Walked in one day, there's one sitting in the showroom waiting to be sold. And I think it was only, I don't know, not even 10 years later, I was putting 10 grand's worth of stereo in that one as well with the airbags and all that. Like, people had no concerns about modifying them, even though they were very limited.
Yeah.
But it's like,
But the SV6000s are around. Apparently there was 3 or 4 GTSRs in Kalgoorlie at the
Yeah,
time.
I heard that, yeah.
So I'd seen 2 of them, which I knew the numbers of, and then one later on, which I know the owner of in the eastern states now, and the original logbook actually has the address of the first owner.
Oh.
And it's Kalgoorlie, and ironically where the address was 2 blocks away from where I lived in my caravan, the caravan park, and I never even knew the car was there. I never even seen it, so I don't know. It's got very, very low kilometres, so I'd say you never drove it. But then supposedly there's someone else that's got one which I got the build number of, but never saw it in person, and it's parked in a shed next to a VK Group A that's never been driven as well. And he bought them as kids' investments. So I'd really like to go and see them, but I never got around to finding out who it was and where they were. But you hear a lot of stories about cars in Kalgoorlie, and I don't disbelieve it, but until you see it yourself, it's hard to grasp there's cars like that sitting around.
It's funny speaking like this era, right? The 90s, early 2000s is that when it comes to Commodores, when it comes to HSVs and all sort of stuff like that, the build numbers were a lot lower. They were capped, right, compared to the mass-produced, like VX onward sort of thing like that, mass-produced. And then how many custom cars there were, like you had like the Holden by Design sort of stuff. Like you go and buy a VS, it's SS, and then you get the Holden by Design stuff, where it was a sunroof and there was this, there was that. There's a lot more customised stuff, same as the HSV.
HSV enhanced,
Yeah,
or the
enhanced,
HSVI.
yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas that sort of fizzled out, whereas as in when it comes to later model cars, they're, like I said, mass produced, and they're all very similar, compared to the old girls,
Yeah, the options list got smaller,
Yeah.
but sales went up because that's what people wanted.
Correct. But then, like you look at like the SV88, right? That was one of the first ever HSVs as such, and that was actually designed for a businessman sort of thing. It was a Calais, VL Calais. You could get the mobile phone, which is the old brick that used to be bolted into the car itself, and they even had a fax machine. Like it's so funny how, back in the day, like HSV was actually a luxury car.
Yeah, very corporate.
Very corporate, whereas now you think corporate, you think, BMW, you think Mercedes-Benz and stuff like that, whereas the old Bogan, at the end of the day, mate, I don't care, they're Bogan Commodores, mate, just tricked up Bogan Commodores, that we all loved.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Going back to the online auction thing, you've obviously sort of done your time trawling through those, buying, selling, and whatnot.
Yeah.
That's sort of how we come across the car that you're arms deep in now, Psycho. Do you want to give us the story of how you came across the car or how you found it and where it's at up to now?
Okay, so I found it online, Burns & Co auction, a couple of years ago, right? There was all the photos and stuff online, and I did email Burns & Co to ask about, there wasn't a photo of the tray, okay? And I'm not sure if you guys are aware, the tray was a big centerpiece of the ute because it had V10 amps and all that sort of stuff like that, and a heap of airbrushing, and it had actually like a roller shutter, and the roller shutter wasn't operational. Well, we know it wasn't operational. It was in there. It was there for looks, but it didn't work. So I actually emailed Burns & Co and asked them about the car. Pretty much said in essence is that there's nothing in the tray. That's all been removed. The TV, there was the TV from the back of in the back window had been removed. What they told me regarding the interior of the car, it looked like everything was there, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so
and you'd been tracking this car for a long time, so you knew a lot of the sort of intimate details of what it had.
We discussed it before it even come up for auction. I think it was just being that era car. We spoken about it, and I knew that Troy loved it, and anything that sort of popped up, we'd spoken about it. But it was just by chance that it came up in the auction.
Yeah.
And we're like, check this out.
Because it had been, like Daryl was telling us, is that Daryl's done a lot of research and stuff, and he's actually spoke to the original owner, Jamie, right? So long story short is that Jamie sold the car, because Jamie lives in Cowra in Nowra in New South Wales. He sold it to a guy that owned a caravan.
We traded it for a new caravan.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
He'd kind of grown up and had the kids, and the ute was just sort of sitting there, from what I can work out, about 6 or 7 years after he'd shown it last.
Wow.
And obviously the kids getting older, and they decided they needed to travel, whatever reason, and he traded it on a caravan. Not sure, obviously a decent sized caravan, because it was, I'm guessing it was probably 80 or 90 grand's worth of caravan for the guy that traded it. I think was the one that was first trying to sell it for 80 or 90, so I guess he's probably trying to get his money back. So I'm not sure on exact numbers, but that was the gist of it, was that he was the first one to sell it, which I think would have only been a couple of years after he probably got it and realised that, what am I going to do with this thing?
That's a real growing up moment though, isn't it? You have one of the top elite sort of show cars, something that was on covers of magazines everywhere, to then trade it in on a caravan.
I'm pretty sure that's the story anyway. I think.
And the guy had a collection, because there was photos online of the guy's collection. There was other cars and stuff like that. That was like a centerpiece. And then we don't know, after that guy sold it, we don't know how many hands it actually went through until I got it. So
it was for sale online for a couple of different people, but we don't know at what stage exactly who had it and what they did with it.
I'm sure it's like anything. You get people that sort of go, "Oh, I could bring that back," you know what I mean? And they think, "Oh, it's mostly there. We could put this back together." And then when you actually get into it, it's like, "Okay, this is a hell of a lot more than I thought."
Yeah.
Well, at that stage, I think when he traded it for the caravan, it was still complete. All the tray and everything, all the cab, everything was still in there. So it still looked like a complete show car ready to go.
Yeah.
But at some stage between then and when we got it, someone's left it out in the weather, and the roller shutter has either not worked, or for whatever reason it's filled the tray up with water. Because the way that the sub box was done underneath the floor next to the fuel tank, it's fiberglassed in, so the water's then sat in that tub, and then the hole that goes into the cab is open. So all the water has built a pool in the tray, and then started filling up the cab.
Oh wow!
All the modules, all the wiring, everything for the TV, and that was obviously all behind the seat. So at some stage, someone's gone, "Oh crap, this is all now not working." So they've just started cutting all the wiring and pulling all the stuff out that you wouldn't see anyway.
Okay.
So when you opened the door and looked in it, basically at the auction period, it still looked complete. But nothing worked. The TV wasn't going to work. Nothing was going to do anything. All the trays obviously got wet. They've just pulled the whole lot out, binned it, or they've sold off the parts that were useful. We don't really know. We don't know who did that, and we don't have a contact to be able to chase that up. A couple of people we've sort of spoken to, really a bit sort of hazy about it. So we may never know. Someone might come forward and say, "Oh, my mate had it," and so if anyone knows anything, it would be good to have a chat.
Shout out
exactly.
for sure.
I mean, for all we know, the tray install could be sitting in someone's shed still complete. Who knows? But we can only guess. But you can see obvious signs of water damage inside the cab, and if there was wiring stuff there, it's no-brainer that it was going to be damaged. The drains out of the tray, one side's completely blocked up, so any water that got in there, it was done for. Once we realised that there was no tray in it, then.
So you realised that when you were talking to Grays before you
so it was Burns & Co. Burns & Co. over in Victoria. I actually never bought it through Burns & Co. I spoke with them, as in via email, to find out information about the car. Once I found out it didn't have, X, Y, and Z, is that I didn't bid on it. So
the blower had also been removed at that stage.
So at that stage, when it was in Burns & Co, no, it wasn't. It was all fitted. It was all running, I believe, right? And then it was a few months later, is that I received a link to a Gumtree ad, okay? And then I'll be honest with you, is that the gentleman I mentioned earlier, one of my mates that does FIFO, he was the one that spoke with the guy we bought it off of, or I bought it off of, and he was the one did the deal and got it all sorted, got it here to Perth for me. So, like I said, is that when we got it to Perth, I pretty much took the car, got taken straight off the truck and straight around to Pro Auto in Canning Vale.
Yeah.
They were the guys that actually got it running, got all the car running correctly. Did a couple of dyno runs, mate. Made amazing power. Not
5 litres always, mate,
Yeah.
keeps
Oh,
power.
yeah,
eh?
absolutely.
So we
Sounded good doing it.
yeah. So we got it all running. Okay, so it all ran. It didn't need hardly anything done mechanically because the car had done low cases. Like I said, it's done 4,000,
4,200 or something like that.
something like something stupid. So it didn't need much like that. There was no oil leaks or nothing like that. So we got it running. Then I'll be honest with you, I drove the car from Canning Vale, and I drove it to my warehouse, and I might have drove around the block once or twice.
Yeah.
Just to drive that car from that location to my location was like 10, 15 minutes. But due to the fact that car is super low, that car, I don't know, the exhaust system was just straight through.
It stops at the centre console, so there's nothing
Yeah.
on it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
So
it's rusted out where the bits that are left
Yeah,
there.
there was no sound editing, no nothing. So in the car,
Sits about an inch off the ground.
it was just insanely loud. You could feel the heat coming through the firewall and underneath the car when you're driving it.
Yeah, your spine would have got crushed. 'Cause everyone knows VS Utes. As soon as you lower them, they are terrible.
Right.
Terrible for ride quality.
Yeah.
Like real bad. And I'm not picky at all.
No. And then, like I said, I drove it back there, and I thought to myself, "What have I done?"
Yeah.
As in, what have I done? And then
And nothing worked.
nothing worked. Nothing actually worked. And my cousin, he's an auto sparky. He had a look at the wiring and stuff like that, and he's like, "Troy, this thing needs to be fully stripped. This thing needs like some serious time and effort." And I'm like, "Wow." So then it sat there in my warehouse for about 12 months. Okay. And then in that 12 months time, Daryl and I just, talked about it, and then sort of said to Daryl, no, I actually didn't say it. He actually offered, didn't you, Daryl?
Now the truth comes out.
Yeah. Send it over.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he goes, "Mate, I'm not doing anything. Like, I don't work, I don't do anything,
Just finished another big project.
Yeah.
And then shed.
So we got it. We sent it back. We sent it to Orange in New South Wales, and then the mad magician that I call him, he's been put to the task of putting it back to original, with a twist of, current day sort of spec on it.
Yeah.
Making
So
it
what
to an
is
elitish level.
Yeah.
what is the base ute? It's a VS ute, obviously. Was it a Maloo or an SS?
It's an
or
Olympic.
It's an Olympic.
It's a Series 3 factory manual 5 litre Olympic ute. So it
Okay.
was absolute POV pack as far as the features go, to the point where it didn't even have ABS in it. So when I first saw the photos of it online and whatever, and I said, I think ABS has been removed. I said, it's a Series 3, so it's a VT motor with the MAF. It should have ABS and dual airbag. Like, if we want to try and get this thing registered and someone's removed an airbag and ABS, it's going to be a big problem.
Yeah.
But then I don't know if I spoke to Troy. When I got it into my shed, I hunted down for not Troy, Jamie, and got a contact number for him and said, I've got this ute here. Do you mind if I give you a ring? And he loved it. And I've been on the phone for 20 odd minutes with him the first time, and confirmed with him that it never had dual airbags, never had ABS. So I was like, well, if we want to get it registered, that'll make it a lot easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, he started with a dead stock, brand new Olympic edition ute. So
There you go.
and that's when he took it off to get the HDT body kit on it. That was the first thing he did, was the Devonish seats and retrim those, and then did all the blue bits in the engine bay, and then it snowballed quite rapidly from there.
Yeah, that's right.
So he got hold of Wayne and did the airbrushing on the tailgate, and that was the first bit that he did. This was pre-AUTOSALON days. I don't know how he came about the airbrushing thing, but got the tailgate done. And then from there, he must have started going to AUTOSALONs, and then the airbrushing just snowballed from there, and
Till the whole car was covered.
the whole car was covered.
and underneath too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause
So between him and his old man and his best mate, they basically did everything themselves. They stripped it down and did all the tray and did all the cab, and it was, as far as I know, nothing was really, except getting the blower fitted. I think they did everything themselves.
Yeah, okay.
Because getting back to the HDT stuff, so it's actually stamped as a HDT ute now.
Oh.
And I actually got, it's funny what you get and what you don't get, right? So
Yeah.
I actually got the handbook from HDT with all the options that Jamie actually
It was
had.
built as a sport. So
yeah,
it had the sport
HDT
sticker on.
Sport,
So whatever
yeah.
their option package was, it was turned into a sport.
But it even had the receipt. It had the receipts on how much it actually cost Jamie to build this HDT ute, the whole lot. It was,
Everything.
it was insane, as in what he actually got done on the car. Like, I don't. seeing what he spent on it and what to purchase the ute, just those two alone, you know.
For the time period as
He
well.
wouldn't
The
have
time
spent
being was
spent as much on the ute as what he paid for the ute, I think.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, time he did the wheels and suspension. It's got coilovers in the front. It's got the custom discs and like, you know, the seats back then, Devonish seats wouldn't have been overly expensive.
No,
but
they weren't. I was
certainly
buying
wouldn't
them
have
back
been cheap
then.
either.
Yeah,
so,
true.
and they were retrimmed from brand new.
Because I reckon from memory, the receipts, and don't quote me on this one, is that it was about 25 grand that he spent for a HDT.
Yeah, okay.
Right, and the ute was probably worth 25 grand, you know. So
Yeah.
it's probably like 50
And it
grand.
was still
for
dead
that.
stand engine, didn't have a camera.
It's
in it,
crazy
just
that
had exhaust on it.
you've got the receipts for that, but you had
Everything,
like
yeah.
no tray install. And like, and like, no, like, you know what I mean? Like,
But that's it.
That stayed with the car, but all the
yeah,
other stuff
you know what I
didn't.
mean. You
Yeah.
think that's the first stuff that you
Yeah.
kind of lose is bits of
Paperwork would be
paperwork
gone.
and books and
Oh,
stuff.
I even
yeah.
got a HDT hat. I've even got a HDT like key ring and stuff with
Wow.
it when I got it from. And I don't know if the guy that I purchased this off of actually if it's remanufactured sort of thing, but it looks pretty legit to me. It's like in a whole HDT.
Well, the receipts definitely are, but
the
the rest
HDT
of it-
folder, and it's all HDT
Yeah.
in gold and stuff.
You wouldn't
so-
think anyone's going to put that sort of effort to
Yeah.
you wouldn't think so anyway.
And then when I purchased the car, it rocked up in a set of HDT
Momo
like a
Stars.
Momo Stars, mate. Which they're a nice rim, but I would have loved the original set of rims that were on it. You know, the XHP. What were the
the original ones and
No, not Simmons, but
AME.
the AME ones.
Oh, was it Model Arts or
Yeah,
whatever?
Model
Yeah,
Arts.
I would've loved
so
it.
funny that era. There was
it went
just
through a
some
few.
things.
He had some Enki rims that were show rims that were very, very expensive. I don't think they were the best looking ones he'd ever had on it, but they were his
Strong and
show rims.
lightweight. Yeah.
Yes, I had the AMEs and then the. I don't know if it did ever have the Momos on it.
Nah, so the Momo, I
Had
think
the Simmons
the Simmons, yeah.
earbuds. So earbuds at one stage, and that's what you put on it before it got sent over to me with
So
some
pretty much,
earbuds.
yeah. So pretty much, I took the HDT rims off, and I had a set of Simmons laying around, so I put them on. They actually come off that VR Senator. I bought them for that, you know. Chucked them on there, and then when I flogged that off, I chucked the rims on that sort of thing. So
In the last couple of weeks, we do now have a set of brand new Momo Status 20x8s.
they were mate. I remember when
Forged rims, and they popped up for sale. I don't know, a few weeks ago now, and I sent a link to Troy, and they were a one-off set available with the perfect offset, PCB,
Wow.
everything.
So you had no choice, Troy. You had to. It was more or less.
They were the wheels he always wanted.
wanted
yeah,
mate.
Mainly
that
because
is
of-
just a sign from someone, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy
So
how
I
it comes
sent
together
a
like
link
that.
to Troy, and he said get on it. So I messaged the guys. Actually rang them and said, you know, these are obviously going to suit VS and yada yada, and they're billet caps as well. They're not the plastic ones. Like they're legit.
Because they were the ones
quality
that
rims.
were on that yellow and red.
Yeah, on the Roman Autotech.
Yeah,
ute.
the blown
Well, that was
ute that was
obviously
on.
the
and-
Momo ute. So
an
Yeah,
aero bar
yeah.
as
back
well.
then, I think they were 20s on that ute back in the day, and they must have been rare because you're very.
Oh,
I
20s
haven't
was-
seen 20s
yeah.
pop up anywhere.
But how expensive were 20s back then?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
tyres.
Insane,
Yeah, even like a little bit after that era, because I reckon I sort of just missed the PSYCO. So I started my apprenticeship in like 04, so I got into cars right around then.
Yeah, it was the year
and
before that,
and
which
I've
is
got
like shows.
honestly, I've probably got just about every street Commodore mag from about 04, 05 up till only a few years ago. I've got hundreds of them, and I've
Same
kept
here,
them
mate.
all
Yeah.
because I reckon one day when I'm old and retired, I'll just want to reminisce and have a look.
Mine
My
goes
wife
back to
is
97.
cursing me, dude.
Oh,
But I don't think I have that ute anyway, so I don't know the exact details
Yeah.
of it, but it's cool.
So well, that's the thing with I've been in the car scene since 95, 96ish. So before that ute was even built, really.
Yeah.
But literally, and then obviously seeing through being in WA, only ever seeing those sort of cars was through magazines.
yeah.
Forums sort of started kicking off maybe 2000s, I think, really heavily.
Yeah.
And then digital cameras. So you never really got to see the photos of cars like you do now. Like it could be on the other side of the country and you can see a photo seconds after it's unveiled.
Yeah.
Back then, we never got to see them until the magazines hit the shelf or the Summonats videos or whatever. You're always wait a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even if one of your mates was there and saw it, by the time he takes his camera to the chemist and gets
Yeah.
the photo developed and then he sends it to you, you know?
So yeah, knowing PSYCO so well, seeing it evolve through magazines very, very rapidly, and being obviously a VS addict, knowing exactly what he was doing and sort of knowing the ute so well, but I never actually got to see it in person. no matter how many shows I went to, most of them running in WA, so obviously it didn't come over for WA. It was the only state that he didn't take it to. But knowing it so well and never seeing it in person, and then the first time I literally laid eyes on that ute, it was coming out of a transporter in my backyard into my shed.
Surreal.
Oh.
And I knew everything about it.
Yeah.
But yet I'd never seen it in person. I'd never even met Troy, funnily enough. I'd spoken to him online and that was it. I'd never met him. So all of a sudden I've got this ute that I hadn't seen, well, you know, you don't see it in magazines, but never seen it. No one had seen it for 20 odd years. And then all of a sudden it's in front of me in my shed and I'm just standing with my kangaroo staring at it like, what the hell is this? How did this come about?
Yeah.
So I'd never seen it either. I'd never seen the ute either. It's like I'm the
I've
same.
never been to WA.
Yeah, I'm the same as Darryl. Well, it was only the street Commodore mag and every other mag, right?
Yeah.
And realistically, if COVID didn't hit, right, I wouldn't have been having that cool drink on my patio. And a mate's like, here's a link to it. Like, you got a second chance. Is this somebody
Yeah.
trying to tell you something?
Egging
right?
you on.
Yeah. And the same bloke that's, you know, he pretty much likes, you know, so yeah, and that's the story that it is, you know. Like,
Yeah, right.
But you've always got a mate egging you on, and like,
Yeah,
as in,
we're their mates.
I was gonna
We're
say,
their mates.
we
I'm
are.
pretty bad for it.
or you know, oh mate, you think you should have this, or what do you think
I
of
mean, I
that?
told
Or,
him to buy it, but I never expected it to end up in my shed.
but it was just one of those cars, like an idle piece, right?
Well, it's a piece of history, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like there's just something there.
Yeah.
Oh, for me it is. A lot of other people might look at it and think, this thing's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Why, Troy, why are you spending money on that? Like, there's other things you be, you know, whatever. I'm like, man, I work for this.
Yeah, that's
You know?
it. Yeah.
The funny thing is, when he first got it, and we were obviously it sat there for 12 months, and we were sort of back and forward about. I'd already committed to doing it, but I hadn't had it yet. I think it was a few months after I'd said send it over. Actually, it was wasn't even more than 6 months, I think, when I said, yeah, I'll do it. You know, send it over. So we're sort of back and forward about what to do with the tray because obviously there was nothing. It was complete blank canvas. So Troy's obviously knew what I'd done in the past and said, you know, what can we do with it? And I'm like, I don't know. I said, I'll just go to town. I said, we'll get some stuff. We'll just build something that you know, works. We can either stick with what it was, which was reasonably boring to us to an extent. It was just a couple of flat panels, a couple of amps. Like it was nothing over the top. It was the airbrushing that made it look showy.
Yeah.
So I said, we can do whatever you want. Go nuts. Find something you want to do, and I'll just basically copy that, change it up, make it what we can do. And it was then that the AUTOSALON cars started popping back up.
It was just
In that period.
The sex-spec cars just started to rise from the
Ghost,
ashes.
and they started popping up at shows, and everyone was going nuts over it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, it's cool to see this car. Remember this car? You know how original it was. And then photos start turning up of it, and you know, oh, I've got photos of that back, 10 years ago. And no one had photos of PSYCO. It had been put in a shed 03-ish, and nobody had phones with cameras then.
Yeah.
So you go look online. I was trying to find photos of the tray so I could copy it. You can't find photos of it. It just doesn't exist. But yet everybody knows that car so well. Oh, I've got the magazine. I've got the poster on my shed.
yeah.
Everyone's got it.
Yeah, they got a front
But the
three-quarter
only
shot
photo
of it.
they've got in their head is that exact photo that's on the poster. No one
Yeah.
knows any other angles of it. Nobody's seen it. You can't find photos of it. It's like, this is going to make it really hard to build. So it was really cool to when we first announced that obviously we're rebuilding it. And then everyone was like, oh, you know, I remember that. Yeah, cool. And I'm like, you got any photos of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got some photos somewhere in my box. And I was like, that doesn't help me.
Yeah.
So I've had a few people scan them and send photos through, but they're old and grainy. They're just not high-res photos to be able to use to get details. So I'm literally using Street Machine's photos, and I've got a ruler out. I'm trying to measure the pieces that are in the tray so that we can build it to be roughly the same size, but change it over. So when the AUTOSALON cars started popping back up, and we said maybe we should keep it the way it was because that's how people remember it. That's how it should be. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel.
No.
You know, I'll remake it the same. We'll adapt a few things to make it different. I won't say better, but we incorporated the airbags into it. All that's completely hidden, mainly because you can take it to a show, you can lay it out, looks sick, everyone loves that. But the key for us is we're obviously going to trail it everywhere, is we can lift it to get it into the transporter without having to take the front bar off. Or, if it's still low, you can drive it.
I was going to
at
say
a
you can
normal
drive it
height.
without crushing your
Yeah.
spine.
If you want it to look low, you can, well, there's no guarantee
'Cause
it's not going to do that still with
That
the weight in it.
that
Yeah,
front
true,
bar's
true.
massive, man, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
got a race car front bar on it,
Touring
which
front
is,
bar.
it was obviously a HDT one back in the day, and it's a solid bar. It's built well. It's still in mint condition. So, but we can put the bags in it, take it to a show, and lay it out. And I've had the 20s on the front and put one corner in already. And basically, once it's fully aired out at the moment, the front bar will sit about 15 to 20 mil off the ground.
Perfect.
So, bang on.
Yeah,
it's not
spot
going
on.
to. it'll be sketchy, and Troy's going to be careful with it, but it'll be low. But yeah, it had coilovers in it, so I've removed that, did some measurements, and it's about 80 mil lower with the airbags to what the coilovers were.
Wow,
so
that's insane.
It'll tuck the 20s in the front guard, and it'll look mad at a show. But you know, we don't want to change and have the airbag on display in the trade. Like, look at us, we've changed it. We want to try and keep it original. So everything that's been done is been done the same, of a better quality to a point, to a showy point. Everything that was done very, very quickly, that Jamie did, had to be done quickly, because between AUTOSALONs, I had to knock it over quick to get to the next show to look like there was progression. That was the way that the AUTOSALONs worked. Yeah. So now we're building stuff to be judged from you can get in there and judge it, not from a distance. So that's where a lot more time is involved in making things meticulous, which I won't say OCD, but it's it's just ingrained in me now with my job that it has to be to the best level I can do it. So it's a lot more time to make things like that, but the difference will be people can get in there, or judges can get in and have a look, and it will be flawless to a point.
I think it's pretty obvious that that's like sort of an attribute that you have just in general, is you've got a good eye for detail. And also I think the scene in Australia, as it's evolved over time, like that's sort of where we've like narrowed down to now, where it's like everyone's doing the really nice smooth engine bays, and it's the little details that we all know make a car what it is, you know.
The cream will always rise to the top, you know, and it's just like, well, I mean, we were just walking around the SLE before we started recording, and it's people like yourself who have been around these things so often. You can pick those minute details that not many other people would see, you know what I mean? Like there's little things that are done on, and like your car as well, Kurt. Unless you're intimately familiar with that make and model, you probably wouldn't be able to pick it, but you've got that eye, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like an evolution through the decades. You obviously, as all blokes, we've all got egos. You want to try and do something a little bit better that either you've done before or someone else has done, and that's just the evolution of the car scene. I think like you said, they were slapping them together and doing big chunks, and then eventually you can only do that for so long before you want to do it like the little details,
the 1%,
like that. Like we're getting it down into a needle point now with the show car side of things. Like Australians build amazing quality cars on a world scale. I think even a lot of our street car stuff, you know, it's really good compared to overseas, I think.
So the decision to sort of restore it back to how it was in the glory days, Troy, is that something that you were pretty pumped on, or were you maybe looking forward to making some changes or some improvements?
No, so realistically, I wanted to rebuild it to what I remember the car is. Right? What that, you know,
the real nostalgia.
That as in the poster. You know what I mean? The poster and reading about it, mate. That's what I wanted to do.
You want to look at the poster and look at the poster and look at the ute. Yeah, and they're the same,
identical,
and different. You know, sort of what's the point of restoring it when it's
there? But there is a few little touches, like I said, is that you'll laugh. It's actually so when it comes to the stereo system in it, is that it's actually the old school stereo gear.
I was just about to ask, so in regards to equipment, have you found that same equipment that it had?
Yeah. So the screen was in there. The screen was fine, but it didn't have the module which is hidden away, which is the key for units back then. So I managed to source one of them.
So we've had to hunt high and low to get the hardware to run the stereo. The speakers aren't the original speakers, okay, but they're not the original brand of speaker either, okay. So we've changed that, but you wouldn't know.
Yeah, stuff that you can't see. We've changed.
Yeah,
and it's funny, like you've got the big V10 amps in the back; they're massive. And Daryl had pulled in a favour and actually got some from Nathan. Bought some like reconditioned ones. Yeah, and mate, these things look brand new.
Excellent.
Okay? But then, when it comes to the amps that run the speakers and the doors and also the subs and stuff, right? You don't realise how far technology has come. Like how big the amps are only like minute, really, really small, and they actually pump out more power than those big bricks that are in the back of the tray. You know, those sort of stuff. So, getting back to it is that the car will look the same as what it was in the magazines. The only things changed, like Daryl said, is that the airbags is more for practicality.
Yeah.
The Momo status was my dream. Okay, is that if we can find the rims that were,
because we have been looking with either the AME Model Arts or the Momos. I mean, Momos just don't exist.
Yeah, correct.
So people who've got them don't want to sell them.
So if we can find the other set of rims, yes, I will purchase them. So it is the same. Okay. When it comes to the modifications, is that the additional modifications we'll do to the car, a lot of it is what the original owner wanted to do to it but never did to it. Okay.
Yeah.
So potentially the car might end up with some twin throttle bodies.
Now we're talking. Now we're
He wanted
talking.
to do.
Yeah, which he wanted to do.
He had lined up.
Also, is that the engine bay will be getting refurbished, as in like
Smoothed out. I was
off
about
and
to ask
stuff.
that question as
we'll be
well.
doing that. Daryl's already hidden all the wiring, etc., out of the engine bay. That's all being done. So that's just all. Realistically, all that's going to do is get re-cleaned up, stuff like that. We will be. The supercharger will stay.
Yeah. Is it the same supercharger that I had before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Same
original
supercharger and intercooler as before. One thing that will be getting changed is the way that the piping for the supercharger we run. The piping on the
With a bit more room.
the piping on the supercharger is massive.
Yeah.
Like so, 3-inch thing, and we don't know why it's been done like that. It's more probably for show purposes.
I was going to say that'd be just bang fact, like
Yeah.
wow, like yeah.
Also, so that will be changed. Okay. You guys would have seen on Daryl's YouTube channel regarding what he's done with the flooring.
Yeah.
The flooring is got changed due to the fact for weight purposes, because it was made out of pretty much sheet
2 mil
metal.
steel.
Oh really?
Yeah,
I could barely pick up.
It was thick
The old
as.
ones were 10 kilo each. And
Yeah.
the new ones
Far
under
out.
3.
Yeah.
Not that the weight's really a concern, but it was
No.
just, they were built, the original carpet was still in there underneath.
Yeah.
And they just sat over top of that, and you couldn't push the clutch pedal in. The clutch master
That's
cylinder
crazy.
failed.
Jeez, they did some crazy stuff. Hey? I would
someone's
never
taken-
think of doing that. Eh? You know what? I'm going to put steel over my carpet. And
Yeah.
Look,
Someone's
Far out.
taken to the floor with an angle grinder to try and get the clutch to fit properly, so they've cut it up and hacked it up anyway. So well, that one's going in the bin.
Yeah.
But once I had to pull all that out to do the sound deadener, and once I'd done all that, the floors probably wouldn't have fitted anyway. So
Yeah.
it was just a logical thing to
that
remake
that
them
100% makes
finish them.
sense. Yeah.
So they'll get airbrushed to be exactly the same again.
Yeah.
That's the plan anyway. The original person who did all the airbrushing, he's from Perth now.
Okay.
He goes between Sydney and Perth, and we've spoken to him. So hopefully he can work out a time frame where he's going to come out to Orange. So I'll have everything ready to go, and he'll just re-airbrush everything and copy and paste from the old ones to the new ones. So visually they look exactly the same, which is the whole point behind it.
Yeah.
But when it gets judged, there's no gaps. The finish is a lot better.
it's next
So-
level of finish.
Does he have like photos of all the work that he done on that ute, like to pull from for when he redoes it, or?
It was actually done twice. I don't know if you know, but it was the whole thing except the tailgate was completely re-airbrushed
Okay.
in 2010. So Jamie got all the stuff done, and if you look at photos, there is 2 sets of airbrushing photos, so to speak.
Right.
So Jamie got it all done, and then it sat there for 6-7 years. 2010, from what I can work out, is that Wayne, who does the airbrushing, contacted him and said, "Look, I'm doing a calendar or a TV series. Can I take it and redo it? And we want to use it." And he said, "That's fine. Do whatever you want to do. Don't change the one on the tailgate because that's the original one, and I don't want that touched." So everything else on the sides, all the floors, all the doors, everything got redone. So
I don't think that the only thing that
not
probably-
everything was the bonnet.
Yeah,
as
the
well, I
bonnet
think.
was the
Yeah.
same. And I must admit, the bonnet is the only bit that I don't like about the car. The photo of the bonnet I don't like. But I also, the new murals on the side of the car, mate, I reckon they're even better than the original ones. You know,
Yeah,
that sort
right.
of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of at the thing where now we've got, it's, it sort of has to stay how it is, but then is it original or isn't it original?
I think as long as you keep it in the spirit of what it was
Oh,
back
exactly.
then, you never, like you said, no one's even got photos. Everyone's got memories. I bet people that seen it originally, if they seen it again, they probably wouldn't even know. As long as you keep it in the spirit, I think a little bit of your own flavour
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like, we're going to
is
redo it.
it's like a good mix.
Yeah.
You're not
So
really.
when I first spoke to Jamie and I said, "Look, this is what's missing," like, he was pretty devastated, but at the same time, just hearing that I had it and
Still
he
alive.
didn't know me from Bar of Soap. He didn't know my history whatsoever. But obviously talking to me for the period and then saying what we're going to do and what I've got to do, and like all the stuff behind the seat, that was completely gone. So the eyeball subs long gone. We don't know where they are. So it was kind of a phone call to get his approval to a point to say, this is what we want to do. Do you think that would work? And he's like, yeah. And then I sent him the photo of the wheels when we got and he's just like, yes.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's
Yeah,
sick.
they're going to look so
loved
good,
it.
eh?
And one of the main things that I did on the interior was always, it was sort of, I'd say 80% done as far as custom goes. So it still had the original roof lining. The plastics on the B-pillars, I don't think he ever painted, but they were obviously changed back. All the behind the seat was changed back to an original setup because it'd been removed. So someone's gone to the trouble of doing that and repainting the whole tray in black again, so it all looked like it was an original. So when I sent him the photos of stuff I was doing, and Troy didn't even know at the time, I got another roof lining from the wreckers. I was like, I'm not putting a standard roof lining back in this thing. So I got another roof lining and fiberglassed it all and had it all smoothed out in primer and everything. And I sent a photo to Jamie, and he's like, "Is that a glass roof?" I said, "Yes, it is." And he goes, "Oh man," he goes, "I always wanted to do that." He goes,
Yeah.
"That's sick." So it's we've got his blessing for everything that we've sort of done with it. And going back to the twin throt thing, I was talking to him at Summernats and I met him for the first time, and he said, I was actually on my way to Wollongong to pick up a set of twin throts, and it was $2.5 or $3 or something. And before he left, for whatever reason, he never ended up getting there to pick it up. And I was like, really? It's like kicking yourself, seriously.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they're worth $15 or something now. And to pick up one back then, $2.5, $3 would have been ridiculous money as well. But
Oh yeah.
it so he had intentions of putting that on. It was, you know, just a natural no-brainer back then. That was what you would do to try and increase its, you know,
That's
presence.
just what everyone did, eh? It was
Yeah.
sort of, there was token things from that era, and that's kind of how I like my cars as well. Like we joke about the earbuds and stuff, but back then, if you had Simmons, the original 3-piece, like that was what everyone wanted, you know. And I still reckon that they're a good-looking wheel. There's no,
They're a go-to
yeah,
wheel.
they
You can't go
they
wrong.
look good when they're done right.
You're not just saying it because they're on your car right now.
Well, they're on my car because of that, and I got them cheap. So,
Yeah, but
but yeah, the twin throts, and there's certain things, there's a certain look that we all sort of know and like,
Yeah.
and it just works with the old Commodores.
Yeah, I think we're all, you know, the four of us, we're all sort of into that particular era, you know what I mean? Like all four of us, we're from that era of the forum.
Although one
magazine.
Sorry to cut you off, Steve, but one thing with Daryl, I remember he used to always hang shit on the 5-litre guys. He'd be like, Bodanko, remember from the forum days, because you're a V6,
Super 6
a
boy.
V6 guy back in the day,
but I
whooping
still do
ass. Yeah, exactly. And we do the same with LS guys and Barrett guys and everything.
funny
It's
thing
all
is,
in good fun,
the
isn't
only
it?
5-litre motor I've ever owned in my life came from a written-off VS Club Sport in Kegrelly that I bought that got T-boned, and we pulled the motor and box out, and I sold it or gave it to a guy who built my Gen 3 for the GDSR.
Yeah.
So I've never actually owned a car with a VS 5-litre that's running and driving.
Yeah.
I've never actually owned a car that's got a V8 in it, funnily enough.
So what's the go with the GDSR? Is that...
I was just about to say, yeah, where's obviously that's probably waiting until PSYCO's finished, but
It's an unfortunate time in my life, I guess, that I went from being in Kegrelly to never doing any panel beating in my life to being able to do all the auto electrical, all the paint, all the powder coating and stuff. Everything I could do myself, I did in Kegrelly on that car. And I kind of had the money to do that sort of stuff before I left Kegrelly. And then when I decided to move over east, it went into a truck, I bought a truck to move all my cars over this side, the other, where are we now? Yeah, the other side of the country.
yeah.
So I took everything back to Orange with me. So the car sat there, and then after the couple of years of starting doing the panel beating, I was like, well, you know, I can sort of do this stuff now. So I had the car to be able to, the skills to be able to finish the engine bay. It was really the only thing left to do on it. So I sort of started doing a few bits here and there, but it got to the point where I just didn't have the time or the money to be able to do it. It's panel beating, you don't make any money. It's not an industry you want to do to be able to pay for stuff. So it's now a situation where it's sat that long that I won't say lost interest, but I just don't have the time of day to work on it. I've got a 5-acre property I live with Mrs. on, but it's got a 6x6 garden shed, and it's a low roof. You can't do anything in there. I can't fit. Like, I've got the ute in there now. The GDSR's under cover on a lean-to on the side of the shed, so it's not in the weather, but it's also not completely covered over.
Yeah.
So it's not deteriorating, but it's also hasn't been touched.
Yeah.
So it's still exactly the same condition as what it was when I left Kalgoorlie, basically. Once I get a shed sorted, then I will get back into it.
Yeah.
So I was sort of the first one to start building a GDSR replica, and I'm likely
Yeah.
to be the last one to finish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's more replicas than genuines now, but it is what it is. But it was,
And what's the goal for it? It was going to be a burnout car originally. Is that still the plan?
Solely was going to be burnout car. Back when I started building it, there was no such thing as power crews and that sort of stuff to events to take your car to. So it was either burnouts or drag racing. That was pretty much it. So now it's evolved into event cars where you can take them and go and just cruise around the track and, you know, do power skids and burnouts and whatever you want to do with it. So I don't know that right this second I have a goal for it other than build a car that I can drive and use. I always wanted to twin turbo it with the NRE mirror image turbos. So the engine bay was what I've started building, was built with the intention of doing that, having the low mount turbos on the sides and have the biggest bay possible. So when I get back into it, that'll still be the goal. But yeah, I guess just to start with is get it up and running and having a driving car that I can actually go and use.
Yeah.
But then the Calais that was built, every nut and bolt on that was stripped back to absolute nothing. And built that car and then finished that, got it tuned and drove that across Australia. And that's once that ran out of rego in New South Wales, it pretty much got parked up and it hasn't been regoed again.
Yeah,
so
okay.
That's sort of sitting out the weather that has deteriorated.
Oh, really?
Sort of
It's in a sad state of repair.
It's not the
I
best.
do remember photos of that, and this is sort of before the big burnout comp started and whatever, but you were skidding the car, and I still vividly remember this photo that was probably taken from the track side of the burnout pad where the exhaust is just glowing like an undercar neon from the header flange all the way to the exhaust tip.
Yeah.
There's actually a photo from behind with the smoke off to the side, cleared obviously from the wind, and you can see the one exhaust tip, 3-inch exhaust, and it is orange at the back of the car. Like you can look straight and it's orange. I don't know.
Probably the most expensive undercar neon you could buy.
It used to melt the rubbers front to back, so I'd get off the pad and the exhaust would be pretty much on the ground because it would just melt the rubbers front to back. And I don't know whether that was in the tune or if it was just sitting on, you know, limiter for the 3 minutes.
Yeah, it used to cop a flogging.
But how the hell it kept going, I don't know. I used to eventually seize the blower, but I don't know. I've never seen any other cars do that.
I was going to
So
say
I
it
don't know why
performed
it was
like really good, and I guess back in that era there weren't many guys skidding V6s like they are now. You know, like that's all everyone's sort of skidding now for the most part.
Yeah.
Back then you were sort of paving the way a little bit.
Yeah,
from what I remember anyway. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't heavily involved in that scene,
There
but
certainly wasn't
I
any
definitely
Supercharged
remember.
V6s running around doing it. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
that's right.
But I don't know. It was just that was the car I had, and that was what we had a thing in Kegley where we go out every weekend and do burnouts, and it was just the car I had. So I was like, I'll just start burning out in this one.
Yeah.
And then made a little bit more power in it, and it was like it goes all right. So got decent built transmission, and then went down for burnout masters in probably would have been 07. Would have been late 2000s when something motivation was still a good thing. Went out for burnout masters, drove it down there, went in the comp against all the blown cars and everything back then, and it was just the one class I think.
Yeah.
And I missed out on top 10 by one place.
That's crazy.
And it was all the big name guys back then that sort of I knew most of them. And
Farrell and George Saparovich.
Like, man, you should have been in top 10. Like to go out there with the V6 and do that, and miss out by one place. It's like I'm like, yeah, I had fun doing it. I didn't care. I wasn't going there to win, but top 10 in a V6 against all the blown cars would have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
But the next day got in, drove home, back 600 k's back to Kegley, and didn't miss a beat. Like how the hell it kept going, I don't know. Eventually it did break, only because I did a burnout at the Kegley Speedway, and I think we waited about 5 minutes and then went back out to go again. And the oil was too hot, too thin, and it started knocking. I was like, well, that's the end of that game. It was still running, but when we pulled it down, bearings were not real good. And it got sent to Perth to get the engine rebuilt, and he said, you've been giving this thing a hard life. I said, oh, it's had a reasonable hard couple of years. Why? And he said, all your pistons are square. Wow. And I was like, is that normal? He goes, no. Said, yeah, right. He goes, this thing's been revving a lot for a long time. I'm like, it's had a couple of revs.
Send him a link to the
been
YouTube
used a
video or something.
Yeah. But motivation, a couple of years, 3 years I ended the burnout comps in that, and never really got anywhere, but it was a bit of fun. But
And that was just a stock bottom end L67.
that was dead standard. They still a standard cam. It was just rockers and a bit more boost and a tune.
Yeah.
I think it was about it. And then we put the intercooler on it, and that really woke it up. But trying to spin the blower 3 times faster than standard, it didn't like it. It got very hot. And
the rotor pack's not too keen.
Little blower did not like expansion.
Nah.
and
They're old, aren't
seized
they?
up.
They were old sort of even back then.
Yeah, For sure.
The maximum's supposed to spin at 21,000 or something, and I think mine was 28 or 30,000 RPM or something like that. So when we did the maths on it, it wasn't supposed to be doing what it was doing.
Did Calais come out with a supercharged
The
V6
Series
today?
2 VS,
Yeah.
the Statesman and Calais were the only ones that came with that.
Yeah, okay.
that
'Cause
motor.
I knew the Statesman's come out. I wasn't aware that the
You
Calais
couldn't buy it in anything else. It was only Statesman and Calais. It was only
and the
Series 2s.
Caprices and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
My
And
wife
then-
had a Series 3 VS Caprice
Yep.
with a Super 6. That was a punchy little car. Honestly, they were quite good.
Yeah, dead standard. They were pretty. They were detuned because they didn't want them quicker than the 5 litres.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think they probably still were.
Yeah.
I think honestly,
But
they
it's
were.
Like 20 kilowatts
yeah,
difference
they-
on paper.
They were 6 pound, 6.5 pound or something standard boost, and they could run 10, 11 all day long, which isn't a massive upgrade, but it's enough to make a 5 litre look pretty silly.
Oh yeah.
But when you turn them up to 21, it really wakes them up.
Yeah.
And they can make 450 horsepower at the wheels standard on a dead standard motor without anything done to them. You just got to put a bigger blower on it.
Yeah.
So they're a strong little motor.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
You've got to
You
know what
can-
you're doing to.
Yeah, especially with the advancements of like E85 now. Everyone puts E85 on stuff. You can just get ridiculous power now. It's crazy. I've
Yeah.
seen.
Your limitation really is your hard parts at this point.
Yeah, I seen on. I think it was one of the V6 groups, which I don't think I'm on a V6 group, but some sort of Commodore group. I don't want to
Sure,
say that
yeah.
out loud. They've just someone's just put a 2650 Harriet blower on a L67.
Holy hell.
Yeah.
Damn,
So,
dude.
Yeah, I was interested to see how
That's
that
a lot
goes.
of compressor.
I
Yeah.
think Justin's from Astro, his wagon, that's got a 2.9 on it.
Yeah. I
And
remember
that's
that had a
run nines.
big Whipple on it, but that's a big build. That thing, holy
Well,
hell.
He before the wagon was orange, because I've known him for ever since forum days. Like
Back
a long
when it was
time.
silver.
We sort of, between us, we started BYE name, effectively Backyard Engineering. That's
Yeah.
where it came from. We were taking the piss one day, and I said, Backyard Engineering, and it kind of stuck, and now it's a thing. But yeah, the wagon motor, I think he was supposed to go somewhere and it broke, and he had a dead standard one sitting there. So he put this bulk stock, however many hundreds of kilometres on it, in the car with the 2.9 set up, and he drove it for a year. Drove all out to Kalgoorlie and back, didn't miss a beat, and obviously tuning him, he knows his shit. So, and then he got back to Perth and went and drags and ran 10.8 or something in it, and then went to the burnout comp at the same night and flogged the hell out of it and drove it back.
Just
home.
kept on.
How the hell
Yeah.
it survived, and that was over 400 horsepower of the wheels from a dead standard V6. Like,
Yeah, funny story. My wife wrote that Caprice off, and he come down to Bunbury and bought it.
Bought the motor.
I ripped everything. There was nothing
Okay.
left. He took the shell and had the motor, like the driveline was in it, but I took all the interior and
So
everything
the
that
same
I
motor.
wanted out of it. And he took literally the car, and yeah, it was probably that motor.
with that motor.
Yeah.
Because he literally went and picked one up just so he could keep driving the car, and just dropped the standard motor in until because he was building stroker motors then.
Yeah.
And I think that was a bit of a waste of time because he realised that they weren't the strongest, and
Yeah.
went through more of those. And then when he made over 400 and dead standard motor, it's like, we'll just put some head studs and gaskets in standard motor and just keep doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, yeah. So that's the V6 story anyway.
Yeah.
It's like getting back. Sorry.
No,
But
you're
getting
right.
back to PSYCO, right? Getting back to like the car audio thing, right?
Mm.
I think one of the biggest highlights is when we finally sourced all the car audio, and Daryl had it, rigged up and stuff. Was actually sitting in the car with the original Nintendo 64 that was in the car.
Yeah.
and
Which still works.
Which still works.
Awesome.
Playing what was that game?
Wave Runner or something like
Wave
that.
Rider. So like,
That's the only game that Jamie ever had in
Yeah.
it, and it's still
it
with
was
it.
still in the car when I received it. So this is random stuff what you received through
Far out.
three cars, but yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
No, you've done a good job of documenting it so far on the KAL SPL YouTube channel, and I'm sure there's plenty more updates to come because you've got a fair few late nights ahead of you.
Yeah, well, when we first got the car over there, and I'd already had it in my mind that obviously Troy being in WA, he wasn't going to get to see the progression on it unless I had videos or something of it. So I've had my YouTube channel for I think since 2007, and it was only back then. It was purely just to put up the videos from the burnout comps motivation, so that the people that were there could see them, because there was no social media back then.
So you could post the link on the forum.
Yeah, so it was because you couldn't load it to the forum because the forums were photos. Actually, I don't think they could even load photos.
No,
to
because you had to have
forums.
photo bucket.
You had to have a photo bucket account, and then YouTubers obviously put videos on so that you could put the link up so people could watch their video or whatever. And so I knew I had the platform already there with a massive amount of subscribers, 120 or something. But yeah, it was. I had a brand new iPhone that I haven't even used, and I knew it was a decent quality kind of thing, so I thought I'll just start doing some clips on it. And I said to Troy, I'm going to record everything I'm doing so that we've got history of it, so we can either start doing YouTube episodes, or we can make sort of videos out of it. Whether we want to make it public that no one knew that I even had no one knew it was getting restored. And once again, that was right before all the AUTOSALON cars started showing up and having interest. So I sort of had 6 or 9 months of footage already been recording the steps as I was going, and then it started popping up, and Troy said, "Oh, maybe we should, start putting them up now so people can sort of follow it and see it and
ride the wave."
It was one or the other. It was either not
Yeah.
tell anyone and just turn back up with it finished,
Yeah.
or have a progression. And I said to him, "Look, I honestly don't know. I'm not on it every day, so it's going to be YouTube is sort of something you need to be doing on a consistent basis to make it work, really."
Yeah.
And not knowing that that wasn't going to happen. I couldn't do enough footage during a week or a couple of weeks to be able to make a decent episode. It was like, do we do it or don't we? But it's worked out all right.
I reckon ride that wave of interest while people are interested in it. Capture that.
Yeah.
And that only makes it last longer, or you get more stories. And like I say, when you start putting things on social media, that's when you get that bloke that goes, "Hey, I've got photos of this," or "I've actually got a piece from that build."
I've
or
got
whatever.
that train stalls in my backyard or something
Yeah.
like that.
Well, that's what it was more like. It was actually like a thank you, to the people, because it's unbelievable how many people have reached out to Daryl and said, I've got this, I've got, not parts wise, but as in photos, or I remember this, remember that, That's one reason we did.
Or just the simple things, comments of saying, I'm really glad that you're doing the resto. It's really cool to see, because I remember that Uten, but it just disappeared. So it's
I mean, Kurt will tell you this. Our opinion after having sort of started our YouTube journey and putting our bits and pieces up there. Not that we do anything spectacular, but you get back far more than you put in. I feel like the community input, the support, the motivation, and the level of accountability that it holds you to as well. It's a really good thing.
The funny story about how we actually end up here really is that I've probably never come across your channel previously. It wasn't until I think you mentioned it in one of the videos that, have you seen that PSYCO's getting restored? And someone sent me the link to that, and I was like, what do you mean? And I went and watched it, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yep.
And then, obviously from there, subscribed and started watching the videos and stuff. But it's things like that where that's how, it's
the community
became,
grows.
It became
and you just make new friends, like-minded friends. We've made 2 new mates today.
That's it.
One
of them had to take a bus, 2 trains, and a plane. And
it's 5,500 k's, I think, to get here. But it's take me a couple of days.
And you're probably still only just getting over the jet lag now, and here you are on camera.
I still keep waking up at 4:30 in the morning, thinking it's 7:30 in Orange. 8 o'clock last night, I was ready to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So what's the plan once the car's finished, Troy? What are you going to do with it? Is it just going to be a bit of a showpiece? Is it going to be just that trophy for you, or is it something that you're going to use?
No, so realistically is that it will go on the... all I want to do is take it to Summer Nats. To be perfectly honest, I want to take it to Summer Nats, and I want to take it to Motor X in Melbourne.
Yep.
Whatever else happens to it, I'll probably stay on the East Coast for another 12 months after it's finished. Okay. I can't afford a penthouse, right? And I can't afford a Ferrari to put in the penthouse like a certain person we've seen, which is credit to him, right? So
I think it was a McLaren.
Yeah, McLaren. Okay, no worries. So realistically, is that in the future, when I retire, is that I'll build a house with a garage, and all I want, I've seen a photo once where all it was a guy had a couple of cars in a garage, and there was like a glass screen.
Yeah, we've all seen that
and
photo.
You can look from your lounge room there, right? So pretty much all I want is the PSYCO Ute and my VS GTSR, right? So when I'm sitting down, when the kids are probably annoying me or yelling at me, whatever, I can just tune out and I can look at the cars and think, how cool are they?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's all I want to do.
They're just trophies on a mantelpiece, but it's a bloody big mantelpiece.
Hey, that's man, we could only dream of so many things. I think, like you say, I've seen the similar photos. It's a pure white lounge room with a projector screen, and then you got like this big window, and you can just look out over your cars. I reckon there wouldn't be anything better.
Oh, that's it. The only thing I don't want is there's a big craze when it comes to the lights on the roof, and they're like them.
Oh, the hexagrid.
Hexagrid, mate. they're everywhere. It's like VS GTSR's replicas, mate. You know, they're everywhere. I was like, I don't want them.
So we'll get it finished. The gist of the from here on in is basically the engine bay will be smoothed. We'll just fill up the holes. It's not going to be over the top. We don't want to. All the original stainless steel plates that hid all the wiring and all the stuff in the engine bay that made it look showy but not tidy, they didn't come with the ute anyway. So I'm not going to remake stainless pieces to hide stuff that I can hide.
No way.
So the first thing that I did was get rid of all the wiring in the engine bay. So it's all done. That had the ute back up and running again. Found a lot of things that were done related to the blower kit that were not the best and probably didn't help it running. There's things that deteriorated with age that need replacing. Things that can we just change now that we have a bit more room, we can change to make a lot better. That will make more power, but at the end of the day, it's sort of irrelevant. It's never.
You're not really concerned about trying to get any sort of.
It'll have the sound, and that's really the key ingredient. It doesn't really matter how much power it makes, and it's a 5 litre. It's never going to make power regardless.
No.
But me as a person, right, is that people that know me, this is probably the only modified car that I've actually purchased, right? I'm a show and shine sort of guy, and I'll be honest with you, I'm a mad, passionate HSV fan. I actually just like cars that are clean, neat and tidy, that haven't been fucked with, right?
Yeah.
Whereas here I am, I've gone to the opposite scale with this car, but
ironically, you still haven't bought a car to modify. You've bought PSYCO
to
because it was
restore.
PSYCO.
Yeah.
It's just that it needed to be done to get it back to how it was. So you're still not modifying a car in the sense that you bought a base model car and gone, look, I'm going to do all this shit to it and go crazy.
Yeah.
We bought PSYCO and we want PSYCO, and that's what we're building back.
Because all the years, I haven't really modified a car per se, as in, I bought cars and I've put big stereos and stuff in them, and, you might put a set of rims and stuff on it, but I haven't really done the
bolt-on stuff.
Bolt-on stuff. Hasn't been the car, like what you guys are doing here.
I was going to say, you said you watch the channel, that's all we do.
Yeah.
We just fuck with shit that you shouldn't probably fuck with.
But I enjoy watching it. I just haven't done it. It's not my thing.
Yeah, look, if you want any words of wisdom, don't. Just don't.
Well, that's a good thing about being where I am now is our shop. We're not limited to anything, really.
Yeah.
We're limited to people's budgets, and conveniently over there we've got people with big budgets that are happy to do, here's my car, just do whatever you want with it.
Their limits, their
There
imagination.
wasn't a single thing on that 1 tonner that we didn't modify for any reason. There's nothing left original, and it was just a blank canvas to do whatever we wanted. And we were limited to the stuff that he had that had to go in it, but just go nuts and make it look, you can't just take a 1 tonner to someone else and expect it to stand out when it's standard. And that was kind of the owner he's stuck in the 80s to a point where he loves his chrome and he loves that old style, and everything he wanted to do we kind of undid. So it didn't really end up being the way that he pictured. It was supposed to be a white ute with lots of chrome and end up being a red ute with no chrome. So, but he wouldn't now. I said to him when we finished it, I was standing there looking at it, and he sat there in his chair for a good hour and didn't make a noise, and we're like, is he happy with it? And he goes, I just can't believe it's mine. And I said to him, so is there anything that we've done that you would change now? He goes, no, nothing. He goes, it's perfect. I was like, well, we're trying to build cars for people now that don't have that vision. They can't see the finished product, where between me and Ben, my boss, we can sort of see it, and we know exactly what we're doing, and you can picture it's 2 different people where you can sort of, you know what you want to see and you're working towards that goal, whereas some people, they can only see what they've seen.
A car, like a good car build is more than the sum of its parts. Like, you need to have a good idea of the theme, and you've got to, everything's got to work, colours, there's so many different ways you can do it.
Can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've all seen it before, where you could have the best components with driveline and just real flashy stuff, but if it doesn't stick together, it just doesn't hit like it does. So
it was kind of the thing with PSYCO is that we're just doing the same way what it was. Like 99% of people will see it, they're going to be like, oh, that's PSYCO, and then exactly how it is. They're not going to really understand looking at it that the entire tray is built from scratch recently. Pretty much probably 80% of the cab is all new. Like it's just.
I think it's a
people look the same.
blessing, honestly, because once it's done, you're not gonna, when it's in your little showroom off to the side, you're not gonna like see things and go, oh, I don't really like that.
Yeah,
You
wish
know,
you
like
hadn't done that.
like you said, it's gonna be a recognisable figure. It's
Yeah.
still gonna trigger that
It's still
same. It's not.
psycho.
It's gonna knock like 20 years off you straight away. You're just gonna go back to when you first sort of seen it or whenever it was when it come out all those years ago. You're still gonna get that feeling,
That's right.
but it's not gonna be like, oh, that looks a bit shit house or this
And
or
not
that.
only that, once it's sitting in that little glass box, it's not going to be Jamie's car. You're going to be looking at your car.
Yeah.
Which I mean, Jamie obviously brought that idea to fruition, and he triggers that nostalgia within you from that time, but it's going to be yours.
Yeah.
I think realistic, like the car, like, even though I do own it, right, is that it's more a piece, is that brings you back, like you said, 20 or 21, 22. It's same as when you jump in one of my old Bogan HSVs and stuff, man. I remember all those laps, cruising around Bono streets, man, you know, tunes cranking, the people you were hanging out with, going down the back beach, man, and meeting different people, or going down the back of Jalora up and doing whatever we used to do out there, you know, the Mad Mile and stuff like that. Like it makes you feel young again. And at the end of the day, is that none of us are getting any younger.
No.
We get more grey hairs and all
I'm
that sort of
not
stuff. But for that half an hour you're in that car, you know, it makes you feel like just reminiscing, man.
Takes you back to that place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And sometimes when life is that hectic and busy and stuff like that, and we all get wound up in our own, you know, own journeys, and sometimes that half an hour driving that car is what you need, mate, just to get you back on track, or just to de-stress.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one thing I just love about these cars. You know?
Yeah. Each car is just its own experience,
Oh,
isn't it? And
yeah.
That's it.
The biggest thing I'm looking forward to when it's finished is taking it to a show, having it set up, and having the people that are our age that know the era, and walking up and looking at it closely and seeing it for the first time,
Yeah.
and going, this thing's mint. Like, I remember this thing, and like,
Yeah.
look at how good condition it's still
Yeah.
in. They're probably not going to realise that it's just been fully restored, and even the ones that know it's fully restored, they're going to appreciate it for what it is now. But you know, that'll be the thing that I'll be enjoying the most, is
Yeah.
people coming up and going, oh, I remember this. This is, you know, it's awesome to
Yep.
see it still here in this condition. And
Yeah, you get to take them back to that same moment.
Getting back to how Darryl and I were saying that we never saw the Ute in person, right? And now Darryl's got it in person. And it's funny, the other day he sent me some photos when we just picked up the Momo status, right? And he pulled off the front left hand wheel, and he sent me a photo of it. And unknown to me, here is all like we all knew, or I knew that all the underside of the car was all airbrushed, right, and it looked amazing. But then unknown to me, in the guards as well, like when you take that rim off,
The wheel lining.
the wheel lining's been removed, and then had it all been painted, it all been airbrushed. There's all sorts of stuff that you only saw, that you thought, or I didn't see it, or hadn't forgotten about it, or whatever. And seeing it is unbelievable.
Still
right?
finding Easter eggs to this day.
Yeah, man. Like
well,
just
that's why I spent a good hour or so just going over it when I got it. Like, I knew what to look for, in the sense that the pictures I had in my head were the only pictures that I'd seen of it. So to see different angles and see different parts and go, oh, I've never seen that bit before, because I've never seen the photos of that.
Yeah,
Like, it's,
when you sent the photo through, the exact photo that you're talking about with I just in my head said, holy fuck, like that's been airbrushed in the, like it's just over the top.
and Wayne
like-
laid on his back underneath that on stands. That was never on. I don't know if it was on a hoist, but I'm pretty sure Jamie said that he was on his back painting that.
like
So
just on
damn.
like a
That's-
He
creepy
must have just
crawl.
had it up on stands.
That's
and
crazy,
just laid
isn't it?
upside down and paint all underneath.
Unreal.
When you were talking about Wayne before, when you were talking about all the airbrushing and stuff, I didn't want to butt in, but I was thinking, imagine how many hundreds or thousands of hours have gone into this car, like collectively, since it was first purchased to right now.
Yep.
It would be absolutely staggering, like on another level. Like there probably wouldn't be many cars that have more when you think about
No.
just all, and I'm not talking about all the good hours of making it good. Imagine some of the hacks, like they would have spent some time trying to fix shit that they weren't even shouldn't have been touching as well, you know. So
I'm pretty sure it was reported that Jamie'd spent 250 grand on it in the 3-4 years. It would have been 3 years he did it.
Wow.
So I don't know how the monetary value came about, or the number, but I'm guessing because they did it all themselves, they probably kept track of how many hours they did and went, well, this is how much we're worth each hour. I don't know. I don't think 250 grand literally changed.
yeah.
But also you got to think, like, think of the stereo, right? Look what a pop-out Alpine screen was worth back in the day. They were $6,000, weren't they? Something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
some of
$6,000.
them, yeah.
And then like
It would have added up quick. It
would have added up. Like there would have been $20,000
If you
easy.
spent $250,000 on parts,
Yeah.
then like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, to put a $20,000 stereo in a car of that era wasn't unheard of,
No.
and it wasn't difficult to do
no,
either.
exactly.
Yeah.
No.
But yeah, that was when you think about that, those sort of numbers, and then what it came back to, what it sort of was for sale for,
Yeah.
and how much we actually got
Yeah.
it for, and
Yeah.
it's like someone's lost a lot of money doing that. But
That's cars.
We've had some iconic cars come through the eras though. Like that one's basically owns that early sort of late 90s, 2000s. But then like we move forward like to Zoltan Bodo's like Senator that he did, and then you've got Chubby's VB that he did.
Yeah.
Like there's just some iconic cars through that era, you know.
Oh, huge.
when I first got it, or knew that I was getting it, I obviously having a heap of mates that are in the same era and knowing cars, and I'd send a message and say, if you had to list the top 3 Commodore VS Commodore Utes that are memorable from back in the day, what would they be? And almost everyone said the Roman Autotech,
Yeah.
PSYCO, and Judge.
I was about to say
Judge,
Judge would
yeah,
have to be
that'd
there for
have to
sure.
be
That it was either they'd either say one would be PSYCO or they'd list those 3.
Yeah, because they're all they're different. They're
At least
different
a
cars.
dozen
Yeah.
people would have asked that.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, funny you say that.
Because it was
Because we didn't want to make it public back then. That I had it. And I was like, oh, I've got to talk to someone.
Yeah.
because was it Todd Wilkes that built Judge,
Yeah.
and he passed away unfortunately,
Yeah,
didn't
in
he?
the
Yeah.
Jeep yeah.
So it's funny. After he built that Judge car, he built a Gallardo, right? Which actually is like an Alfa Romeo.
Yeah.
But then it had a Holden 5-litre in it.
Yeah.
Right? Have you boys ever seen one of them?
Yeah.
Heard about it?
Yeah, yeah.
So just recently, I went up to that car museum here in Perth, the one up north of the river.
Oh, yeah.
They had a yellow one in there. I'd never
Is
seen
the one at Whiteman Park?
Yeah, Whiteman Park.
Yeah.
That's if you ever get the time, go up there and
Yeah,
check
beautiful.
it out. It's
Did
great.
you see Danny Ricciardo's F1 car
Yeah,
in
yeah,
there?
saw that as well, man. That's insane.
So sick.
But that Gallardo is that I'd never seen one in real life. Unbelievable. And just here we are, we're talking about 5-litre engines and stuff like that. Like I'm pretty sure that 5-litre that he had in that was off its head.
It's the same, yeah.
And the amount of because it was the engine out. Was it the engine out of the Ute? Like because that was twin turbo and everything, wasn't it? Twin turbo 5-litre.
I think eventually he did, yeah.
Yeah.
But they standard with 5-litre in them.
Yeah.
Just different manifold, but then you obviously
And
up the game a bit with it.
the
Yeah.
power to weight ratio and stuff,
Yeah.
man, unbelievable. But like 5-litres do put out some power if you do the right things to them, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I mean, I've got one that hopefully will make some power naturally aspirated, but we'll see.
Yeah, you've got to remember when
the
the
best
base of that
horsepower
motor,
ever.
when it was, the architecture's from like the 50s and 60s sort of architecture there. So we were asking a hell of a lot from an engine that really only had to make a couple hundred horsepower, So the fact that
about
we're
the
still
sound.
playing with them, I don't even know how I got stuck with wanting a 5-litre, like I don't, you just don't figure, like, why am I doing this? There's something wrong with me
there's
sort of
so
thing,
many
because it
things
doesn't
better.
actually make sense, but it goes back to just that feeling of like what certain cars and different combinations, like it's just, I don't know, your heart wants what it wants in a way. It really
And
does.
then you had the guy, was it Jason Gray that had the
Oh,
blown?
Yeah.
And he
He's passed away now
yeah,
too.
he passed away as well. But that car broke like back in the day, that 1 horsepower Hero or something. But then wasn't there another car that was a 5-litre that did 1,000?
Yeah, Eddie
So it was
Tassone.
Eddie
Tassone.
Eddie Tassone, yeah.
Yeah,
He's
He,
Perth guy.
yep. And then there was Rapid 8 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a couple that sort of did the 1,300 odd wheel horsepower. That was that they were duking it out pretty heavily at that point. Pretty famous story of the 1,300 horsepower, like horsepower hero competition
Yeah.
where
Hidden nitrous.
hidden nitrous, and then Eddie ripped the intake manifold off his engine and told everyone to suck it. But pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
good being in Orange now because Canberra's only 3 hours away. So
Yeah.
Until I moved there, I'd never been to Summernats, and now I sort of get to go every year. So
Something that I'm hoping to do. I still haven't done it. You did Summernats 30. Have you been to a
30.
Summernats, Troy?
No.
No?
So that
then he wants the Ute first.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that
No
yeah.
pressure.
So I will go once the Ute's there, and that was always my plan. It was always there was always a plan to get the Ute finished and go to Summernats and just and
That'll
and
be your
pop, and
debut.
pop the cherry sort of thing, as
Yeah.
they say. But last year, watching like on YouTube, it looked like pretty off its head, eh?
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
definitely
it's starting to get a
it's
little bit
wild.
more rowdy again. I
Yeah.
think when I went in 30, they've sort of, and this is just me speculating, but I think they've sort of tamed it down when the new people purchased it,
Yeah.
and it was fairly tame when I was there,
Yeah.
and now I think it's starting to take that transition back
It's-
the
it's
other
not
way
the-
again.
It's not the entire show like that though. It's a certain
No,
time
that's
of day
right.
and it's a certain spot.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
being there every year, it's you know where to avoid.
That's
right.
But
Or go if that's
Yeah.
what you're after. Depends
or-
who you're
or
with
be-
and what you're doing.
But the normal videos of normal summer nats aren't the ones that get the clicks. So the ones
No,
that
that's
get
right.
hammered are the ones
yeah,
where
when
everyone's
the
playing
security
up.
guards are beating
Yeah.
everyone up.
Yeah.
Or back, when we were, 19, 20 or whatever, the old boobs and burnouts, mate. Like,
Yeah.
always used to watch them. You go down
The
to
puppy car wash.
Yeah. Or you go down to Civic Video in town there, mate. You get a whole heap, come back on, buy a pizza and a few beers and watch them, They were the shit,
Yeah, times have certainly changed from then.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
On the show thing with the Ute, we actually spoke to Owen Webb, who's in charge of all the unveils
Yep.
at Summer Nats, and I thought while I was there, I said to him, apparently you're the man to speak to about unveils. He said, yeah. He said, well, what do you got? And I showed him a photo of the Ute, and he kind of looked at me and said, is that Jamie's? And I said, well, it's not anymore. I said, but it's sitting in my shed and it's getting a full resto. I said, is that something that you'd be interested in maybe unveiling? I know it's not it's not an unveil of, top 20 car or whatever, but it's something that's people haven't seen that know is coming, but we
It's
can
a
unveil
rebirth.
it to, and to me it's a side little niche that I get guaranteed to have it in the hall because we don't want to turn up with it and then get stuck outside with it. It's not the car that I want to leave outside.
No.
So he jumped at the chance. He said, yep, bloody oath. So to know that when it is finished, we can have it in the hall, it takes a lot of pressure off. We can take the display, we can build a display to, the period correct.
Yeah.
And we can get there and know that we can set up and it's going to be done. So
Beautiful.
the unveil won't be something that no one has ever seen before, but at the same time, it's just cool to be able to go, ta-da, we finished it sort of thing. So,
Yeah. Brought it back.
yeah. So I can't. There's no chance I'm going to get it done this year to be able to unveil it next year. But if that's what our first show is, then that would be pretty cool. But we'll just keep working away wherever I can to get it done. But it's not exactly snowballed, but it's certainly we're doing a lot more than what needed to be done to get it back to what it was.
Yeah, but there's
So-
also
Or better.
there's probably a lot that needed to be done that you didn't realise needed to be done as well. That's the other thing.
There's a lot of things that were sort of missing. Like I knew exactly what I was in for. I knew it was low kilometres, and it was exactly how I expected to get it. I'd say. But then knowing how much work it was to kind of rebuild the whole back wall, like we wanted to put the eyeball subs in there, but the original ones were 12-inch ZRs, I think, and the seat sat 8 inches further forward than where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And Jamie said, Jamie's wasn't tall, he's not a big guy, and he said he didn't even fit in there.
Oh yeah.
And Troy's 6'2" or 3" or something.
Yeah.
Like,
It's gotta make
Those
it practical.
VS Ute cabs are not like
he goes,
they're
"Can we
like
put the eyeballs
borderline.
back in. I'm like, eh. So now today, the bonus
Slimline.
is we've got slimline subs.
Yeah.
So I started doing some measuring maths, and it was like, I can do it. And the seats have 100% travel, and they're
Perfect.
limited compared to a sedan anyway.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
to have full travel, he's sat in it with those subs in there, and it looks identical to a point. They're only 10s now instead of 12s.
The theme is still there,
but
like really, isn't
To
it?
look
No
in
one's
there,
going to see
it looks
and
exactly
go,
the same.
Yeah.
And now if you slide the seats forward, the entire back wall's trimmed, the roof's done, everything in the in-cab is now to a show standard, not just the bits, you can see through the window from a distance. So
Yeah.
that's where the time differences come from being just built it how it was and look the same
Yeah.
to being something that we can take to a show and people don't say to Troy, why didn't you do this bit? Like,
Yeah.
So-
Or walk off going, fuck, that looks a bit
So
average, but
the
when
original, when we never really set a schedule on when
No.
we wanted to have it finished anyway. It would be nice if it was already done, but I've got to do it between having a full-time job and having a property with 20 odd animals that I've got to run as well. So finding a time, and then you've got orange winters, which -4, -5. You can't fiberglass in that.
Yeah.
So we're very, very seasonal in orange. So that changes again. How much time you can actually work on it. You get home at 5:30, it's pitch black, and I've got a tiny shed, nowhere to work. Like, there's lots of excuses I can come up with, but
Oh, don't worry, we've got plenty of our own.
if you need any more, just hit me up.
The reality is I can't get home at night and spend 3-4 hours every night working on it.
No.
It's the dream. It would be nice, and I'd love to say to Troy, look, it's going to be finished in 6 months' time. We're going to be done, but there's just too many factors. That the tunnel was the main one. The last 3 months before Summer Nats, the boss committed to getting the tunnel done, and the only way that was going to get done was for me to be working 12-hour Saturdays, and then obviously the whole Christmas break. And and I said to Troy, look, unfortunately, we've committed to this tunnel. We've spent 4 years building it. We have to get it to this show. I'm not going to get a single minute to spend on yours.
But I don't really, but I've never really cared, to be perfectly honest. It's like, mate, when it's done, it's done.
It's the journey, which is...
I've been watching the car for 20 odd years. Like, what's another few more years going?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. You've driven it once and you hated it. You can wait.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So to be able to do the videos and continue to send in photos and videos of the progression, I think is probably the more enjoyable part than just
that's right. You're getting Easter eggs as you go.
Just going, oh, it's finished, come pick it up.
Yeah.
The best part is that you've got that for life too. Even when you've got it there and it's in your lounge room, you can be sitting there watching the videos and reliving every moment.
Well, hopefully it gets to the lounge room. Hopefully it gets to, that shed set up in the house. Hopefully,
Manifest, mate.
So I've still got time because you just got the shed of the house.
Yeah. So it's,
when there's a vacant spot, he keeps taking a photo saying there's no ute in this spot. Then I'm really like, finish it.
One thing that did blow me away, right, is that car builder's installation.
Yeah.
So Daryl's pretty much done the whole cab of that. Unbelievable.
2 or 3 times.
Yeah, unbelievable, that product.
The whole underneath the car is tin.
Yeah.
Completely stripped back. So the whole floor's painted, so there's no sand in it underneath it whatsoever.
Wow.
And you can just, Daryl's like, when I went over there, so I'm mad into V8 supercar racing. That's my motorsport that I love following, right? So every October I go over to Bathurst, and I always pull in stop at Daryl's and have a look at the thing. And
it's only 40 minutes between Bathurst and Orange, so it's a quick. I can literally pick him up, go home, have a look at it, go back to the racing. So it's
cool.
Close. So it works out well.
And Daryl's like, check this out. So he showed me a section with all the car builders Edna in, right? We knocked on it, and unbelievable.
It's amazing.
And then you go on a panel with nothing, it's like chalk and cheese, mate.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I've never come across, you look at back in the day when, doing stereos and stuff like that, there was nothing like this around. I just can't speak highly enough of that product. And then when Daryl had the stereo rigged up, so I jumped in there, we cranked it up, and the sound, the quality, just, back in the day, you used to crank the old 12s up, mate, and the number plate would rattle, this would rattle, that would rattle.
You're separating the boot skin off the structure and stuff like that.
This never did any of that. It was unbelievable. It was amazing.
Funny story about the subs. When we were initially laying out what we wanted to put back into the tray, and I worked out with Nathan what we needed and what I wanted to do, and stuff that you can't see, we got the modern stuff so that I knew that was going to work and it would be to the best of sound. So if he does want to listen to it, it's sick. The old stuff's going to work, but it's not going to be the best.
Yeah.
In comparison. So Jamie originally had two 12-inch subs hidden next to the fuel tank underneath, and Troy, we found that in many of the stories, so we knew that's what it was, even though we had no photos of it, you couldn't see it.
Yeah.
Troy's like, we put two 12s in. I said, there's not enough room. I said, there's no point. I said, one 10-inch sub in there, in a box, I'll fire it through. I said, it's going to be 10 times better than any two 12s that it's not going to work. The maths of knowing car audio.
I was going to say, the key is in the enclosure.
Yeah. And he's like, do you think it'll be enough? And I went, it'll be enough.
Put a 10 in a bandpass
and
enclosure.
It was more than once that he said, do you think we should go 2 12s? I said, just, look, I'm happy. Look, I've got the 10. Let me build the box. I'll get it all up and running when you come at Bathurst, and I'll have it ready to go and you can listen to it. If you think it's not enough, I'll happily pull it out and I'll get 2 12s and we'll redo it. Oh, all right then. Turns up, had it up and running, turned it on. Sitting there, his eyes just started watering a little bit, and he goes, that's pretty good. I said, do you want me to turn the sub up now? He goes, bullshit. So it's turning up, and he goes, okay, fair enough, you win.
But it's funny, speaking of Nathan, right, because I'm a Bunbury boy, all the car audio that I ever had, I've always purchased through Nathan. Yeah. And then even got it installed and stuff like that. But the reason why I was so sceptical about the 10-inch subs, right, so some good friends, they don't live in Bunbury anymore, they had back in the day, well, still got the car actually, an EL XR8, a red one, beautiful car. And then Nathan sold him a stereo system, and he's still got the Pioneer deck, and it's got the fish and all that sort of stuff.
The dolphins.
Yeah, dolphins, that's it. Yeah. Still originally in the car. And then they fitted bass bullet splits and etc. in the car, and then there was 2 bass bullet 10-inch subs. He said, the 10s, these are going to be great. We put them in there, and I was like, this sounds shit. It wasn't powerful enough, right? It wasn't, the subs weren't big enough, so we went to the 12 inches, right? And I always remember that. And then Daryl's like, here we are, we're talking 2 10-inch subs and 2 12-inch subs, and then he's like, oh no, 1 10 will be enough. I'm like, I always remember that story, right? And then it's like, and then when when I listened to it, like my mind changed dramatically.
Yeah. It's a different cab space,
100%,
different enclosure.
100%.
Eyeballs.
Yeah.
But you know when you always you always try to when you have experience in certain things,
100%.
like,
So do you attribute that to the like the sub technology, or is it just the fact that you knew how to build an enclosure that was more
I knew
suited
what
to
box would work. It come down to the box a lot.
Yeah,
You could put any 10-inch sub in there really, and it would
have been enough.
exactly the same.
Yeah.
There's nothing special about the 10-inch.
Yeah,
It's a decent
yeah.
Rockford 10-inch sub, but it's also got a fair bit of power going to it, which it doesn't need that much. It's probably more based on what the speakers in the front can handle. But as a balance, I can set it up to be the best sound that I know it can have. So it's now a listenable system on any genre of music you want to have.
Yeah.
But if you want to have the bass, you just keep turning it up and up and up.
So I just have to change your name now to KAL SQL. we're going
No, it's a ported box. It'll never be SQL, don't worry.
And then, as you know, everything now is all Bluetooth, etc. So back in the day, it was all CDs. Right. So what Daryl's done
Even the head unit's not the factory screen. Sorry, the Alpine screen's not even a CD unit. It's just a slave screen.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So it had the DVD player underneath it.
So Daryl's worked his magic, and I don't know how he's done it, but now we can actually Bluetooth music to the sound system.
Perfect.
So pretty much you'll be able to go to a show. Now he's got he's put.
I didn't tell him that. So he turned up and I've got my phone. I'm like,
Yeah.
what's this? And I pressed play, and all of a sudden he started playing. He's like,
It's on a Bluetooth receiver.
Yeah, so that sort of stuff. And now we've added dual batteries into the car, which the car
so the
never
battery was always in the engine bay, and that was the main. Once you start moving the battery in the engine bay, you might as well get rid of all the wiring. So that was whether or not Troy wanted it was always on my agenda to get rid of the battery into the tray and then get rid of all the wiring. And even if we put shiny stainless panels back in to cover the engine bay, still but that was
the thing back then.
See, Jamie's him and his dad's business is sheet metal
fabrication.
I don't think it's not even fabrication, but it's not like car fabrication.
Yeah.
It's
Let's be real. That's what was done back then. It wasn't until
Exactly.
Chubby and
And
all
that's
those
why
guys started wrecking it for everyone doing these immaculate bass.
That's why it's got the steel floors and all the stainless polish.
Yeah,
bits in the
okay, that
tray,
makes
and
sense.
That's where it comes from. That is
Yeah.
their business. So it seems logical that's why they would have all those pieces there. They're not auto-sparky, so they're not going to hide all the wiring.
Exactly.
The engine harness itself was sort of hidden. It was run through the scuttle and kind of hidden a bit, but even then it was not the best. So they obviously reached the limitations of what they could either do, A, time-wise, or B, what their skill set was. I'm just lucky that my skill set's probably more than what they had available in the time period, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, I've managed to hide all that wiring and everything, and now the engine bay is completely clear of everything but an engine.
Have you done the proprietary KAL SPL fuse box down in the kick panel there in the drop?
Yeah.
That thread with that how-to is a lost thing now. It's a relic.
Yeah,
it needs to come back. We need to get it because
I'm
a lot
pretty
of
sure I was
people
the
could have
first one
used
that
that.
did that, and I
Oh,
was
no
like,
doubt. I
this
still
is-
remember it, and
Yeah.
it's gone. That whole forum's gone now.
I've got all the
Sucks.
photos. It's all good. We just need to start another forum, and then we're good.
Yeah.
I've got thousands and thousands of photos on the computer of all that sort of stuff that I
Yeah.
did back then, because there were so many people that wanted to do it, and through forums, that was the only way they were going to see it, was obviously putting photos up.
Yeah.
And it was that era of the forums. It was the VS era of the car that was the thing to modify. That the rest of the VTs, VX didn't even exist yet. So that was a pretty big one back then. So I've
Yeah,
done that
yeah.
in the
I
old now.
definitely remember it. Remember it vividly.
Well, we've taken about 2 hours of your time, gentlemen. That went quick though, didn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't feel like it.
It felt like, right, we've known each other all for years.
Yeah.
And we're just reconnecting about certain time and places and
Yeah.
this car and that car. I think I've enjoyed myself.
That's
too.
cool.
That's the best part about a podcast. If you took these microphones away, it'd feel exactly the same.
Yeah. The only thing we're missing is a couple of Swanee Ds, mate.
Yeah, that's
Mate,
it.
there's probably one left in the fridge, I reckon, from when...
And the topless bar, mate.
That can be arranged.
I think it's time that we wrap it up. We can continue the conversation later. But as far as the podcast goes, that's it. Thanks heaps for joining us, guys. Especially yourself, Daryl, coming all the way over from Orange.
Jump back on the plane and head home again now. Another 20
I was going to say, yeah. He came especially for the podcast, guys. Flew him in. Thanks for your time, Troy, and thanks for sharing the story with us, man. It's greatly appreciate it, man. It's and it's great to meet you. And yeah, like I say, we'll keep chatting after this anyway.
For sure, yeah. I feel it's really special to have like some like quality guests. We've had quality conversation for our very first podcast with guests. We sort of set the standard pretty high, I think.
That's
So,
it. And how good? You're just down the road, mate.
That's it, man. Yeah. I can't believe I'm in Bunbury, mate. Like back to my roots, you know.
Yeah.
A couple of lads, you know.
Yeah.
It's, I can't believe we haven't crossed paths before.
True that.
Yeah, because we're all about the same vintage, I suppose. So,
yeah, for sure.
Well, if I'd still been over here, we definitely would have crossed paths at Motivation. But
No doubt.
I think I finished up in the golden era of what it was justified to come down from Kegley for. We used
Yeah.
to come down still, but it certainly wasn't bringing all the cars we used to and have the rockstar days of enjoying it.
Yeah.
It's certainly changed a lot.
Well, guys, if you'd like to support the potty, you can jump on the website, torqhub.com.au, get yourself some merch. Stay tuned for a mini-series coming up. We're doing something a little bit different, Fizzy.
Way different, actually.
Way different. That's coming up. But thanks for helping us get back into it, boys, after our technical difficulties.
No problem at all.
We'll get back into the swing of things, and you'll get another podcast next month. Until then, we'll catch you around.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.
Excellent. That's bang on 2 hours. You wouldn't think today.
Fuck, I reckon we could go on for another 2 hours just
Oh,
talking shit.
you'll never out-talk me, dude.
I was going to say, you can't
You won't
stop me.
out-talk me, bro. I could talk for fucking hours and hours and hours.